Return 10 times as much. 5. Dong Ling looked at her with a pained expression. Why? If only the master doted on the young miss like the way he loved and doted on the second and fourth miss, how nice would it be? Why does master dislike such a good person like young miss? He even wanted to inspect every nook and cranny of Dissolving Moon Pavilion even though there wasn't anything suspicious there. Huang Beiyu entered the room. Dong Ling had already cleaned up the room. This place was bigger and more luxurious than the Flowing Cloud Pavilion. Third miss, our young lady has brought you the ginseng soup. There was someone knocking on the door. Huang Beiyu signaled to Dong Ling with her eyes, and Dong Ling went to open the door. Sure enough, it was Xiao Yun who personally brought in the soup and saw Huang Beiyu sitting on the bedside. She smiled and said, "Is third sister preparing to sleep? Quickly drink the ginseng soup." Huang Beiyu smiled as she received it. When she smelled it, her eyebrows knitted together. As expected, it wasn't poisonous. However, if one takes a closer look, they could still smell the scent of medicine. Her body was immune to poisons, so there was no problem with drinking anything. She took a sip in front of Xiao Yun and set it down. It's already so late and yet second sister still came to give me medicine. I feel really guilty. When Xiao Yun saw her take a sip, the worry in her heart finally disappeared. Initially, she had thought that Huang Beiyu would be very cautious and refuse to drink. But now, there was no need to worry. Third sister, what are you talking about? Since I'm the older sister, I naturally should take care of you. Xiao Yun smiled, it's already late at night. I won't disturb your rest any longer. Dong Ling, hurry and send second big sister off. No need. Xiao Yun waved her hand and let her servant Xia and I out. Once she left, Huang Beiyu took the bowl and spat out all the medicine. Dong Ling's eyes widened slightly as she smiled. Where did young miss learn such a technique? You can even talk with soup in your mouth. I'll teach you next time. Huang Beiyu smiled, she knows how to do a lot of things. I'll go out for a bit. After picking up the black cloak, she left. Xiao Yun brought Xia and I and hurried back to the Jade Water Courtyard. She looked around before closing the door of the Jade Water Courtyard. Doesn't this show that she has a guilty conscience? Huang Beiyu's black figure soundlessly went up to the roof. Listening to the sound, she lifted up a piece of brick and looked inside. It was Concubine Shue's room. Concubine Shue had just taken a shower and lit incense in her room. She was currently combing her hair with a comb. All the maids in the room had left. Mother, she drank it. Xiao Yun walked over happily and put her arm around Concubine Shue's shoulders. This time, I can finally rest easy. You personally watched her drink it. Concubine Shue was a little unsettled. Why was everything so smooth? Wasn't Huang Beiyu very intelligent? Yes. Xiao Yun said resolutely, looking at her appearance, I'm afraid she has suffered quite a bit of shock today. Only then did Concubine Shue let out a relaxed smile. After drinking this medicine, she'll be like Princess Zhang, sick to the point where even immortals wouldn't be able to save her. She'll die after spitting out a mouthful of blood. A cold light flashed in Huang Beiyu's eyes when she heard Concubine Shue mention the death of Princess Zhang. Indeed, it was her who had poisoned Princess Zhang that year, resulting in the sudden death of the normally healthy Princess Zhang. Such a vicious woman. She's ungrateful, cruel, and unscrupulous. Xiao Yun blinked and asked curiously, Mother, is it true that even a doctor can't figure out this medicine? Of course, this medicine is very secretive. Even a refining pharmacist wouldn't be able to figure it out. Concubine Shue smiled coldly. Mother, how did you get such an amazing medicine? Return 10 times as much. 6th, concubine Shue's face suddenly turned serious and she faintly smiled. She turned around to pay Xiao Yun's hand. Yun heir, this matter, don't ask too much. Quickly go sleep. Xiao Yun pouted, mother is hiding it from me too. It's not that this mother wants to hide it from you, but even if you know this matter, there's nothing beneficial to you. Concubine Shuel lightly soothed her, finally soothing Xiao Yun to sleep. The room was quiet and the faint incense spread across the air. The indistinct fragrance was able to float outside. Huang Beiyu tightly stared at concubine Shuel only to see that she was staring at the copper mirror. She pulled at a strand of her hair, coldly laughing, Princess Zhang, if you become a ghost, don't blame it on me. If you want to blame something, blame it on your fate. Saying this, concubine Shui stood up and extinguished the light. She went to bed and began to sleep. Huang Beiyu transferred the tiles back. The cold wind and night blew over and she only felt that the whole body was ice cold to the bone. She silently went back to Rong Yuxian. Dong Ling was staring at her and raised her head to see that she didn't have a good look on her face. She called out in a low voice, "Young miss, what happened?" Huang Beiyu took off her black cloak and placed it in her space ring. She slightly shook her head. Sitting by the edge of the bed, she drank a cup of warm tea. Nothing. Dong Ling, you were more mature than me. Do you remember in the past if the mother had offended someone of incredible status? Or did she have any enemies? Dong Ling had no idea why she suddenly wanted to ask this and she felt it was secretly strange in her heart. However, since the young miss had asked, she had answered honestly. Princess Zhang was kind-hearted and generous. The country's common people all love and respect her. Especially the other powerful countries within the Cardi mainland, like Beiyao, Shirong, Dongli, and other countries, towards Princess Zhang, they all praised her. Most of the powerful people on Cardi mainland all admire Princess Zhang's personality. If something went wrong with Princess Zhang, they would all naturally come to help. Dong Ling didn't hear that Princess Zhang had any enemies. Is that so? Huang Beiyu nodded her head. Princess Zhang's personality, that indeed had no other words to say. Even though she passed away for so many years, when the common people spoke of her, it was all of a thankful tone. From her childhood memories, she didn't hear that Princess Zhang had offended anyone either. Then what did concubine Shui mean by the words today? Who was going to harm Princess Zhang? This question kept on perplexing in Huang Beiyu's mind. The entire night, she rolled back and forth, unable to sleep. The second day in the morning, she woke up with dark circles under her eyes. The fire that started in the Princess Zhang's manor, Crown Prince Zhang Yi had given to Ting Wei Si to manage. Ting Wei Si didn't dare to neglect. Early morning, they had sent someone over. Because this was Princess Zhang's manor, in the past this Ting Wei Gongzhong was recommended to positions by Princess Zhang. This led him to take the seat of Ting Wei steadily. Otherwise, with Gongzhong's honest and just attitude as well as his stubbornness, who knew how many times he would have offended the influential officials and be pulled down from his position. Therefore, in the morning, Ting Wei Gongzhong personally came as well. He came early to salute to Princess Beiyu. Although Xiao Yuancheng's heart was dissatisfied, he was unable to offend Gongzhong. Therefore, he could only invite him over to the front hall, containing thoughtful etiquettes. He let him drink some tea and sent people to ask for Princess Beiyu's presence. The whole night, Huang Beiyu didn't sleep well. The face, naturally, wasn't good-looking. When she was held by Dong Ling out, the originally weak body seemed even paler and withered. Xiao Yun's face brightened. In her heart, she secretly grinned. Mother's medicine, as expected, was powerful. That Gongzhong was a handsome man in his 30s. His face was serious and didn't smile. He was tall and with the temperament of a martial arts man. He had been in charge of the prison for many years. Return 10 times as much. 7. Geng Zhong was a handsome man in his 30s. He had a stern face, unsmiling expression, and a tall and straight back. He exuded the temperament of a military man. He had been in charge of prisons for many years. Thus, he emitted a majestic yet cold aura. The people standing in front of him didn't dare to move. The moment Huang Beiyu walked in, Geng Zhong could immediately tell that she was Princess Beiyu. He immediately stood up. Geng Zhong stepped forward, his clothes fluttered as he knelt on the ground, bowing to her. Commander of Justice, Geng Zhong greets Princess Beiyu. Commander of Justice, please get up, Huang Beiyu quickly said. The official position of the Commander of Justice was very high. Even though she is a princess, there was no need for him to be so courteous. Yet Geng Zhong had performed all the etiquette before he was willing to rise. This action made everyone in the hall extremely unhappy. They all felt resentment in their hearts. This time, I will investigate the matter of the arson and find out what happened. I will give the princess an explanation, Geng Zhong said in a serious tone. He swept his cold eyes across everyone's faces in the hall. Everyone shuddered and shrank back simultaneously. Thank you, Commander of Justice. Huang Beiyu slightly helped him up. Serving the princess is my duty. Geng Zhong took out a brocade box from his storage ring as he said this. These are 2 sleeping pills. The princess must have been frightened and feel uneasy. Princess should place these sleeping pills in the incense burner to calm your nerves and heart. Huang Beiyu took it and laughed. How can I let you spend so much money? Dongling, bring the white jade snow ginseng pill that was given to me by old master and give it to the Commander of Justice. Geng Zhong quickly stood up. Princess, you mustn't. I can't accept this gift. Uncle Geng, this isn't a bribe. My mother had often mentioned you when she was alive, but I never got the chance to meet you. So treat this as Beiyu is showing you filial respect. If you don't want it, then it shows that you don't consider me your friend. The way she called him Uncle Geng made Geng Zhong's heart heat up. When he heard her mention Princess Zhang, he was even more moved. He sighed, you've grown so much now and had become more sensible. Uncle Geng hasn't taken good care of you. I'm ashamed to face your mother. Don't say that, Uncle Geng. I'm already really sorry for troubling you this time. Geng Zhong said seriously, this time, I will investigate this matter thoroughly and definitely not hold back. Although this Geng Zhong was recommended by Princess Zhang for the position of Commander of Justice, he was still investigating both the residence of Duke An and Princess Zhang. Duke An's residence wouldn't hold any influence over him. However, in Princess Zhang's residence, there is Xiao Yuanqing. He is the emperor's brother-in-law as well as Huang Beiyu's father. So if he investigates, he would have his hands tied. However, when Huang Beiyu mentioned Princess Zhang, Geng Zhong couldn't help but think about Princess Zhang's sudden death that year. What's more, he had just seen how emaciated and haggard she, HBY, is with her own eyes, so he would investigate everything without any leak. When the people under the Commander of Justice came to investigate, the people in the residence naturally took a leave of absence. They didn't attend Lingyang College, and Xiao Yuanqing didn't go to the military base. Flowing Cloud Pavilion, which had been half burnt, now looked exceptionally desolate. Steward Zhou's corpse was carried out, while Pei Yu could only kneel on the ground, crying incessantly. Only after seeing Steward Zhou's corpse with his own eyes did Xiao Yuanqing feel truly relieved. The news regarding Princess Zhang's residence being set on fire had already spread through Linhuai City. By noon, young Master Luo Luo of the Buji heir family had personally come to visit. As soon as he entered, Princess Yingyi had also arrived. Returning 10 times as much, 8, the princess had arrived. It was another torture. Everyone within the Princess Zhang's manor all came out to salute and pay respects. Princess Yingye's face was unhappy. She pulled at Huang Beiyu's hand, sitting on the main seat in the front hall. The beautiful phoenix eyes coldly stared at Xiao Yuancheng and a couple of young misses. She coldly exclaimed, "Today, what happened had spread outside. Emperor's son-in-law Zhao's deeds really lead people to be shocked. Today, due to the fact that the people within the Princess Zhang's manor were not allowed outside, so Xiao Yuanqing had no idea what happened outside yet." Seeing that Princess Yingyi was that angry, he was really confused. This official is stupid. "Princess Yingyi, please explain." Princess Yingyi harshly slapped the table, standing up. She hollered, infuriated, "You're stupid. Not only are you stupid, but you are also an idiot. You are so brave. Even Princess Zhang Manor's financial affairs, you dared to secretly store and be greedy over." Xiao Yuancheng's heart immediately turned heavy after hearing this. How come this matter? Even Princess Yingyi had heard this. He was frightened badly. He hurriedly kneeled down. "Princess, please investigate thoroughly. This official had been framed. Framed? Humph. This matter, before, I had just ordered for Ting Wei Gong for him to investigate this. Whether you have been framed or not, we will find out after the investigation." Xiao Yuancheng's thoughts immediately turned cold. The cold sweat on his forehead constantly appeared. The hands and feet were both trembling. Luo, who sat in the guest seat, was actually quietly smiling. "I heard Nanny country, towards the crime of greed and corruption, punishes extremely harsh. Emperor's son-in-law Xiao, you already take the position as the son-in-law. Everything in the Princess Zhang's manor is yours, so how come you still needed to take the risk in being greedy, leading you to take on this crime?" This Buji Luo, although he is not a member within the royal family, Buji family's power was too vast. Likewise, Xiao Yuanqing was unable to offend him as well. Even if he was mocked and satirized, he could only awkwardly smile. Huang Beiyu looked at Xiao Yuanqing, slowly exclaiming, "Before the truth comes out from the investigation, we can't accuse the father of such things. Father, first get up and take a seat." This Princess Yingyi personally ordered for the people of Ting Wei Si to investigate the matter of Princess Zhang's manor's corruption and greed. How could Xiao Yuanqing still be able to sit down? Plus, he had no idea why this matter was spread out. His dream to be promoted probably is impossible. Xiao Yuanqing was held by the servants and he sat down, trembling in fear. He basically was like sitting on needles. "Beiyu, you're just like the imperial aunt. You both are kind and generous. That's why everyone had bullied on your head." Princess Yingyi, today, was determined to teach a lesson within Princess Zhang's manor. This morning, she had heard that Xiao Yuanqing was corrupting the financial affairs within Princess Zhang's manor, and this led her to be infuriated. Plus, based on the past rumors about Princess Beiyu, how could she still sit down and not do anything? The imperial aunt isn't here anymore. But Huang Beiyu is still part of the royal family. These people dared to bully her like this, so in the future, wouldn't they flip the sky over? Her words were especially said for Xiao Yuanqing and the concubines to hear. Once concubine Qin had heard this, she couldn't help to mumble under her breath, "Kind and generous." If this Princess Yingyi had seen the harsh look on Huang Beiyu's face when she killed someone, she wouldn't be saying that she was kind and generous. Princess Yingyi looked at the concubines who stood by the side, coldly explaining, "This type of ugly matter within Princess Zhang's manner of corruption and greed, I had seen through son-in-law Xiao. No one can escape the guilt. Everyone within this manor will be investigated." Concubine Shua and concubine Qin's faces were pale white. Princess Yingyi didn't give them the chance to talk, continuing to say, "Today, it's convenient that Ting Wei Gung Darren and Bujier family's Luo Luo is here. I will let Gung Darren bring the token in order for young Master Luo Luo to check everyone's account within the manor. Return 10 times as much. 9. I'd love to, Luo Luo said with a smile. Luo Luo, who had always been opposing Princess Yi, had never been so obedient. Looking at them, there was no need to even guess. It was obvious that these two people had already been agreed upon everything while they were outside. That was why they came together. They were afraid that a little 12-year-old girl would be bullied and wouldn't be able to handle such a big matter. Huang Beiyu was touched by their sincere and kind intentions. Ignoring everyone's reaction, Princess Yi sent someone to get the command tally from Gongzhong to give it to the Bujier family, telling them to check the bank accounts of concubines and young masters for money laundering. Concubine Qin's vision blurred. Her head felt incredibly dizzy. She couldn't stand still and fell into Xiao Zhongqi's arms. When Princess Yi saw this, she had Wu Shuang move a chair over for concubine Qin to sit on. In the following period of time, the princess didn't say much. She only let Wu Huan take out the snacks she brought from the palace, placing them in front of everyone. Everyone, please have some snacks. It will take some time to check the bank accounts. Huang Beiyu didn't act too formal. In any case, she was just waiting to see a show. Her heart felt at ease as she ate quite a few pieces of dessert. Not long after, the people sent by Princess Yi came back to report. Wu Shuang went out to listen, then walked in, and whispered a few words into Princess Yi's ear. Pa! The teacup in Princess Yi's hand suddenly smashed to the ground. She shouted, "Someone come and grab those two lowly women. Drag them out and flog them to death. Your Highness, please have mercy." Concubine Qin, who was sitting on the stool, immediately collapsed to the ground, kneeling down and begging for forgiveness. Concubine Shui also knelt down in panic, begging for mercy. Princess Yi's phoenix-like eyes swept across, and said with a cold smile, "Have mercy. Do you think you're worthy enough to ask me for mercy? When you were greedily trying to launder money, you should have already known that once this matter has come to light, you'll die. Drag them away." Princess Yi was the most powerful princess apart from the emperor's little sister, Princess Shihi. Princess Yi is born from the current empress and is most favored by the emperor. At her display of might, the entire residence was trembling with fear. The few black cavalries left behind by the crown prince from last night immediately came in, dragging both concubine Qin and concubine Shui out. Xiao Yuancheng was so scared that his entire body went limp and he didn't dare to say a single word. "Princess, please spare my mother." Xiao Yu knelt down and tightly hugged concubine Shui's waist, not allowing the black cavalry soldiers to drag her out. "Your Highness, please show mercy." Xiao Zhongqi also knelt down. As a man, of course, he wouldn't cry, but from his strong voice, one could hear quite a bit of fear. Xiao Rou, Xiao Zhonglei, and the others also knelt down to plead on behalf of their mother. The rest of the children were all hiding in their mother's arms, not daring to speak. With such a heavy atmosphere, anyone who said a single word would die. Only Xiao Ling felt that it was fortunate that her mother was a blockhead and wouldn't do anything greedy. Otherwise, she would be the one begging in fear today. Hearing that more and more people pleading, Princess Yi's face became colder and uglier. "Who is your mother?" "The only one in charge of this residence is my imperial aunt, Princess Zhang. She is your mother. These concubines are only lowly servants." "Good. It turns out that after so many years, there are actually no more rules in Princess Zhang's residence. Even the emperor's brother-in-law doesn't care anymore." Xiao Yuanchang's expression was as ugly as a dead person, his lips trembled a few times. He couldn't do as he did before, using his identity as Huang Beiyu's father to discipline Huang Beiyu. This is because the person in front of him is Princess Yi. Return 10 times as much. 10. What Princess said is right. It's this official's fault for not teaching my family well. Xiao Yun and the others paled in fear. For many years, they have been used to calling their own birth mother as mother. After all, Princess Zhang is no longer alive. Because she is no longer alive, there was no one else in the residence who would care about this matter. However, they had all just realized that calling their birth mother, mother, go against the rules. By addressing their birth mother who are only lowly concubines as mother, it would raise their status to the same level as Princess Zhang. This is extremely disrespectful considering that Princess Zhang is a princess. Furthermore, they would have to bear the crime of disrespecting royalty. Why they still here? Quickly drag them away and beat them. They are merely concubines yet they still dare to act so arrogantly. Flog those lowly concubines to death with the rod. Their corpse is not allowed to be buried and their memorial tablet cannot enter the ancestral hall. Princess Ingye's gaze was full of loathing and disgust as she glanced at the concubines. The Black Cavalry didn't dare to slight Princess Ingye. They immediately dragged concubine Qin and concubine Shua out to the courtyard and ruthlessly hit them with the rod. The soldiers have to continuously hit them with the rod until they are dead. Once they receive the Commander of Justice's command token and check their bank accounts at the Bougier family, all the little tricks and schemes they had committed over the years would be exposed. Concubine Qin and concubine Shua felt their heart turn into ash. They are being dealt by Princess Ingye. Furthermore, with Commander of Justice Geng here, their roads are all blocked. When the two people were hit by the rod, their blood-curdling screams resounded throughout Princess Zhang's residence. Third sister, I beg you to say something and save the concubines, Xiao Rou cried out as she begged her. She kneeled on the ground as she walked towards Huang Beiyu's foot. Xiao Rou isn't stupid. She knows that Princess Ingye was doing this in order to help Huang Beiyu. As long as Huang Beiyu plead for leniency for the two concubines, Princess Ingye would definitely give her face and stop. Huang Beiyu peacefully sat on the chair. There wasn't even a hint of sympathy present on her young and delicate-looking face. Instead, her expression was calm and indifferent. She slightly lowered her head and looked at Xiao Rou, slowly said, Fourth sister, all the deeds that concubine Qin and concubine Shua had done has all come to light. There is concrete evidence supporting their misdeeds. Now that the matter has come to this point, I advise you to try to convince concubine Qin to tell us any other matters she had concealed. If she truthfully confesses, Princess Ingye might spare her life. Xiao Rou's eyes were full of tears. She knew that Huang Beiyu was giving her two choices. Either she confesses all the matters that her mother had concealed, or watch her mother be beaten to death by the rod. Originally concubine Qin was afraid that the servants in the residence would become greedy and steal the money and items. So she had hidden a portion of the money and items. In the future, when third sister comes of age, all the items and money would be given to third sister. Last night, concubine Qin had already told me to tell all of this to third sister. At the moment, Xiao Rou exposed all the money and items concubine Qin had hid for many years. The total amount of the items and money that was hidden was quite large. This made Luo from the Bougier family to click his tongue in disgust. After Huang Beiyu listened, she nodded her head. Concubine Qin knows how to do things properly. As she says this, she faintly glanced at the pale-faced Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun trembled. Does this mean that she has to sell out her mother too? If she reveals all the things her mother had secretly stashed away without other people's knowledge, would Huang Beiyu really spare them? Concubine Shua's blood-curdling scream could be heard over and over again. This made Xiao Yun tremble in fear. She doesn't have much time to consider everything. If she continues to drag this on, her mother will definitely be beaten to death. She is only 16 years old this year. She isn't like Huang Beiyu, who had lived 2 lives. Huang Beiyu had experienced countless matters and interacted with many deceitful and treacherous people. When it comes to psychological games, Xiao Yun is definitely not Huang Beiyu's opponent. Hearing the sound of the screaming gradually weakening, Xiao Yun could only kneel on the ground and plead. "Third sister, I will admit everything. Please consider how well concubine Shui had treated you in the past and spare her. It's for the best if second sister is willing to confess. However, don't try to conceal anything. Return 10 times as much." 11. If the second sister would say it, it would be the best. However, the second sister best not hide anything. Ting Wei Darren is within the manor right now. If he finds out that you are hiding something, then even I can't save concubine Shui. Huang Beiyu harshly exclaimed. This Xiao Yun wasn't like Xiao Rou, that easy to be fooled. Xiao Yun was a woman with a scheme. She mustn't look down upon her. Yes, yes. I will say everything. Xiao Yun cried and narrated in full detail of everything that happened while the people of Ting Wei Si recorded this. Huang Beiyu then raised her head, exclaiming towards Princess Yingyi, "Princess, concubine Shui, and Qin haven't had the best life all these years. I think that they can be freed from death but still needed to be punished. Because you guys have served my father for all these years, leave them in within the Princess Zhang's manor's prison." Princess Yingyi naturally respected her opinions, waving her hands outside. Enough. That concubine Shui and Qin were beaten half to death, lying on the ground with their last breaths. On top of the noble and grand clothes, it was all covered in blood, shocking to the eyes. Princess Beiyu is kind enough to have mercy on you guys. Quickly thank Princess Beiyu. Princess Yingyi declared coldly. Thank you, Princess Beiyu. Concubine Shui was still able to clench her teeth and announce this. On the other hand, concubine Qin just opened her mouth when she fainted. Huang Beiyu waved her hands in regards to Xiao Yun and the group of people, bring the 2 concubines to prison. Xiao Zhongqi watched as concubine Qin was injured severely, clenching his teeth. Princess Beiyu, the 2 concubines have serious injuries. You should call for a physician over to check first. I have a couple of pills used to treat injuries. In a while, I will send it over for the 2 concubines. Elder brother doesn't need to worry. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled. Xiao Zhongqi knew that she was purposefully making things hard for him, but there was nothing he could do. Now, Huang Beiyu had completely turned over. If he wanted to treat her like in the past, there is impossible. However, a nobleman taking revenge, even 10 years isn't late. He didn't believe that Huang Beiyu could be rampant forever. Seeing that concubine Qin and Shui were carried off, Princess Yingyi sat down. Looking towards Xiao Yuanqing, originally, the matters within Princess Zhang's manor, I shouldn't be overlooking it. However, yesterday night, the fire had burned Princess Beiyu's Lu Yungu. This news, unclear how, but it had traveled to Father Emperor's ears. Father Emperor was furious and probably will place the blame on son-in-law Xiao. When the time comes, if the Father Emperor personally asked about Princess Zhang's manor's matters, son-in-law Xiao will probably suffer, so this princess first took control of this. Yes, thank you, Princess, for understanding this old official. Xiao Yuanqing replied, trembling. It's not understanding, but this princess will advise son-in-law Xiao that no matter what, don't cross the line too much. Don't think that you can cross the sea by a trick. In this world, there is no fire that can be covered by paper. Princess Yingyi exclaimed in a cold tone. Yes. Xiao Yuanqing hurriedly kneeled on the ground. Leave. I have a couple words to say to Princess Beiyu. Xiao Yuanqing didn't dare to neglect, hurriedly bringing the family members outside. Within the front hall, all of a sudden, it got quiet. Princess Yingyi, then, stated in a sorrowful tone, "I didn't know that within Princess Zhang's manor, there were no rules. Even the concubines and Xiao Yuanqing dared to stir up trouble. Bei Yu, all these years, why didn't you go into the palace and reveal everything to Father Emperor? It's just a small matter within the house. How can I startle the Emperor?" Huang Bei Yu faintly smiled. Based on Huang Bei Yu's past personality, she definitely wouldn't dare to go tattletale. She had a weak body and even the physician had said that it was contagious, so how could they let her out the door? Return 10 times as much, 12, seeing that she acted indifferently, Princess Yingyi didn't say anything more. She faintly smiled. This time, it was Luo Luo, this small dude who had come up with a good idea. Otherwise, we don't know how to even teach these audacious slutty concubines a lesson. Huang Bei Yu looked at Luo Luo. As it turned out, it was his idea. Yesterday night, she went to the family of Bujier with Shitian status in order to let Luo Luo get a hold of evidence that concubine Shua and Qin have been personally hiding money. Who knew he was that quick-witted? He used the time when Ting Wei Si came over to investigate the matters of Princess Zhang's manor to call for Princess Yingyi over in order to resolve the issue. Luo Luo embarrassedly touched his nose. Actually, I had thought of this idea due to a master's advice. What master? Princess Yingyi inquired out of curiosity. Luo Luo was naturally a naive person and almost exclaimed it out loud. However, he suddenly thought about it and closed his mouth. There is still class within the Imperial College. I will go now. Hey, you wait for me. I also have class. Princess Yingyi turned around to declare to Huang Bei Yu, you don't need to be afraid. You have me, royal brother, and father emperor. A couple of days later, Empress Dowager and Aunt Shihi will be back too. There are so many people with you and there won't be anyone who will bully you anymore. No one can bully me. Princess, be comforted and go. Huang Bei Yu grinned. Now, only she can bully someone. Watching as Princess Yingyi and Luo Luo left, Huang Bei Yu's smile gradually disappeared. Dongling, let's go to the prison. Walking out from the front hall, she peered at Xiao Yuanqing who stood by the corridor, his face the color of dirt. The originally handsome and bright man seemed to have grown old by a couple of tens of years old. The eye sockets deeply fell down on his face, looking at Huang Bei Yu in a pitiful way. Huang Bei Yu halted her footsteps, looking at him. Father, Ting Wei Darren didn't find out anything yet. You don't need to be too worried. Go back and rest. Don't overexhaust yourself. Bei Yu, Xiao Yuanqing hoarsely spoke. Huang Bei Yu ignored him, walking with Dong Ling towards the prison. The prison within Princess Zhang's manor had been dim and damp for a long time. Concubine Qin enjoyed torturing people so frequently, she would leave those who didn't appeal to her, in the prison. Huang Bei Yu had been closed down there a couple of times before as well. Therefore, she was quite familiar with the prison. The servant who looked after the prison led the path, holding a torch. The prison wasn't huge and within a couple of steps, they walked towards the prison rooms. Concubine Qin and Shua were enemies. They weren't shut down here together. Concubine Qin had one room and Concubine Shua was in the one inside. Concubine Qin had been complaining about her injuries. In the past, Xiao Zhongqi was still a well-regarded young master. He had saved a couple of growth muscle pill and at this time, he took them all out, used for Concubine Qin to heal herself. Xiao Rou was by the side, crying and sniffling. In Concubine Qin's heart, she knew that Xiao Rou had talked to Huang Bei Yu about betraying her. Therefore, she pushed Xiao Rou out of the way. She was extremely upset and disappointed. Mother, no need to say anything more. Since you think that you will have a future following her, you don't need to come to me anymore. Xiao Rou was just thinking about explaining this when she raised her head to see that Huang Beiyu was walking in. She hurriedly closed her mouth. Huang Beiyu smiled. Concubine Qin, don't be angry. The fourth sister is doing this for your own good. She is scared that you don't understand the times and something might happen to you, so she came out to testify. Concubine Qin, be comforted. I won't kill you. Concubine Qin glared at her, clenching her teeth. Due to the pain within her body, she couldn't really let out her anger. She could only lean on Xiao Zhongqi, tears falling down her face. Huang Beiyu looked at them and didn't do much more. She walked in to look at Concubine Xue. Return 10 times as much, 13. Concubine Xue had just finished rubbing the medicine on her, lying weakly within Xiao Yun's arms. The moment Huang Beiyu came inside, she immediately widened her eyes. She hurriedly sat up, not wanting to lose her faces even if she had to die in front of this girl. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled. She took out an incense burner from her space ring, letting Dong Ling ignite it. She personally held the incense burner while walking in the prison room. Beiyu knows that Concubine Xue likes to incense, and within this prison room, it's dirty and smelly. It can be expected that Concubine Xue doesn't have the best time here, so within Beiyu's heart, I felt bad. After all, in the past, Concubine Xue was that nice to me. She placed the incense burner within the prison room and opened the lid of the incense burner, placing a pill in there. Right then, the smell spread across the room. The filthy stink was quite sudden, and this led people to want to throw up. The coal within the incense burner was also a lump of low-grade coal. The moment it was ignited, it kept on emitting smoke, which led people to cough. What are you doing? Is this incense burner supposed to be ignited for the use of people? Xiao Yun stood up, wanting to kick the incense burner away, but the leg seemed to be kicking on a metal board. Tears fell down her face due to the immense pain. She scaredly stared at the incense burner. Huang Beiyu actually added the restriction of the vitality energy on the incense burner. How is this possible? Only summoners could add the restriction of vital energy. Plus, they needed to be higher than a 5-star summoner in order for her to not be able to do anything about it. This Huang Beiyu, wasn't she just a warrior? Although a golden warrior was powerful, she was still just a warrior in the end. Plus, in the past, Xiao Yun, who was a summoner, felt a sense of superiority in her heart. But now, Huang Beiyu looked at her in disdain. A stupid person without a brain. She didn't look at Xiao Yun's surprised look. Instead, she stared at Concubine Xue, faintly smiling. Concubine Xue, do you like this smell? Cough, cough, Concubine Xue weakly coughed. Smelling that fragrance, she couldn't help to furrow her eyebrows. This smell, I added the first-rank rotten blood pill within the incense burner. The first-rank pills aren't that strong. The fragrance is ignited, and after taking this in for a long time, the body will slowly start to rot from the inside, making its way outside. Even the bones would be rotten. In the end, you will turn into a pile of blood water. Huang Beiyu casually explained this. Then she slowly walked out of the prison room. Dong Ling hurriedly started fanning the surroundings. You have such a harsh heart. Xiao Yun screamed, wanting to fight her to death. A cold flash of light appeared by Huang Beiyu's eyes. She moved back a step, coldly smiling. The body immediately flashed over to the back of Xiao Yun, and the palm of her hand struck on her neck. She fainted. Yun air. Concubine Xue climbed over. Don't worry, she is my second sister. How could I kill her? Huang Beiyu kneeled down and stared at Concubine Shue's pale white face. Concubine Shue lifted her head and gloomily stared at her, smiling. Humph. Huang Beiyu, all these years, I underestimated you. However, don't get too cocky. You think that by killing me, you can successfully live longer. Not long after, you will be going to hell to see your mother. Huang Beiyu peered at her, mockingly. She felt a little bad of how even till now, she had been daydreaming, thinking that she could use her as a scapegoat. Concubine Shue, you probably don't know, but I am immune to all poisons. Very regretfully, all these years, you had been busy for no reason. Concubine Shue stared shockingly at her. How did I know? You sent me medicine every day, and within the medicine, you included a slow poison. Each day, it will worsen my body. Finally, yesterday, you couldn't hold it in anymore and decided to include a quicker poison. Return 10 times as much. 14. How do I know? Every day, you bring the medicine over to me. Within the medicine, you placed slow poison in there. Each day, you plan to weaken my body even more. Yesterday, you finally couldn't hold it in anymore and started to include a quicker poison. That medicine combined with the previous poison could let me die obscurely, right? Concubine Shue held a pale white face on. After a short moment of silence, she started to laugh out loud bitterly. As expected, I had underestimated you. Concubine Shue had noticed just now. It's a little late. Huang Beiyu curled up the corner of her lips. The smile seemed to be surrounded by a layer of ice. However, Concubine Shue didn't die yet before seeing the second sister excel and well-regarded, right? Humph, what do you want? I don't want to do anything. I just want to know how come you had to harm my mother. Who gave you permission? Concubine Shue stared at her, stunned. Who knew she found out about this too? This girl, when did she started to plot against her? She was actually deceived all these years. Huang Beiyu, you want to know? Well, then I won't tell you. Huang Beiyu stood up and the face was icy cold. She lifted her leg to kick Concubine Shue within, unable to tell the good between the bad. Concubine Shue climbed back up, struggling. She smiled a little crazily. Huang Beiyu, do you take me to be a fool? Even if I tell you, you still won't let me go. I'd rather die and pull you with me the whole life. As expected, you have a courageous spirit. Concubine Shue is different from the others. Huang Beiyu exclaimed in a harsh tone, that's right. Even if you said it, I will still kill you. However, if you were to say it, I will leave a full corpse for you. Otherwise, I will be dying either way. What's the difference? Concubine Shue constantly coughed due to the smoke rising from the incense burner. Huang Beiyu peered at her coldly, then as the concubine wishes. This rotten blood pill needs at least a month in order to corrode you fully. Within this time, if Concubine Shue isn't able to hold on, then you can commit suicide. She won't let Concubine Shue die so easily. If she did, it will be too easy on her. She can slowly taste the flavor of the rotten blood pill. Just like Huang Beiyu all these years, she had to endure the poison's torture. It was much worse with what she had to endure compared to Concubine Shue's. Those who offended her, she will return back 10 times as much. Huang Beiyu added the restriction of vital energy outside Concubine Shue's prison room, then left with Dongling. That Xiao Yun had fainted on the ground for a while, then slowly woke up. As soon as she woke up, she pounced on the prison door, pounding on the door that couldn't be opened no matter what. She yelled out loud, Mother! Mother, how are you? Yun Concubine Shue climbed over. The tears falling down her eyes. She wanted to hold on to Xiao Yun's hand, but because of the restriction of vital energy on the door, no matter what, she couldn't hold on to her. Mother, I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you. Xiao Yun took out the ice feather, wanting to break the restriction of the vital energy. Concubine Shua shook her head. There is no use. Yunair, don't worry. Mother won't be beaten down by that slut so easily. There are some people who can save me. Right now, there is someone who can save me, Xiao Yun sniffled, inquiring. Who is it? Is it father? Humph, your father. He almost can't even save himself. Right now, mentioning Xiao Yuanqing, concubine Shua revealed a face of disdain. He can't even protect his own woman, so what type of a man is he? The person that mother is speaking of, Huang Beiyu, definitely can't afford to offend. Just one word and mother will be fine. Concubine Shua exclaimed with confidence, smiling weakly. Return 10 times as much, 15. Xiao Yun seemed to have hope now. Who is that person? Concubine Shua opened her mouth and just wanted to say something when she suddenly remembered something scary. She violently shook her head. Can't say. Can't say. This type of expression right now, she seemed to in a crazy daze. The face gradually revealed a painful expression. She pounded at the door, saying to Xiao Yun, Yunair, quickly go. This thing, smelling for a long time, it's not that good for you, but mother, it's okay, mother will be saved. Concubine Shua widened her eyes, painfully and with resentment. Slowly, she moved back to the corner of the prison room, smelling the thick smoke within the incense burner. She unceasingly coughed. Outside the prison room, the sun was bright, which sprinkled across the ground. However, there was not a sense of warmth. Young Miss Dongling stared at her depressed look, a little worried. Just today, she had found out that not only did Princess Zhang pass away due to concubine Shua, but also that someone else was behind this. The person behind this, I will definitely find out. Huang Beiyu declared with persistence. Dongling's eyes were slightly red and she lowered her head, sniffling. Dongling, don't cry. Huang Beiyu slowly exclaimed. Dongling sniffled. Dongling doesn't want to cry, but, if you don't want to cry then become stronger. No matter what happens, the tears won't fall down. She raised her head, the gaze clear but determined. Yes. Dongling wiped her tears, not crying anymore. Princess. A servant hurriedly ran over. Dongling exclaimed with anger, what type of matters allowed you to yell out loud? The servants within the manor, when they had seen Huang Beiyu, they were all afraid. Therefore, they politely replied, Jing Wang had ordered for people to bring some gifts over, saying that he wanted to apologize to Princess. And there is also, and what? Stop stalling. What type of look is this? Dongling rolled her eyes. The servant immediately replied, and Ting Wei Darren ordered for people to tie the lord up. Right now, he is inviting the princess over. Huang Beiyu's hand, which was holding Dongling, suddenly tightened. Dongling, in her heart, had stung slightly. But her face was still considered calm. I know. Go reply to the people of Jing Wang saying that princess had been frightened yesterday night and is resting right now. It is inconvenient for her to see any guests now. Another day from now, she will prepare some gifts to go see Jing Wang. Yes. The servants received the orders and didn't dare to stay by Huang Beiyu's side, which was emitting cold air any moment longer. He hurriedly left. Dongling's face was pale white and looked towards Huang Beiyu. Young miss, since Ting Wei Darren is inviting, then let's go over. Huang Beiyu opened her mouth, the voice was cold. It is unclear of her emotions. Dongling could only nod her head. She held on to Huang Beiyu's hand and slowly walked in the direction of Lu Yungu. The people of Ting Wei Si had surrounded Lu Yungu completely. No one was able to move close to the place. Only the people of Ting Wei Si could go in to investigate. At this time, outside of Lu Yungu, they had caught many of the people of family Shao and was now investigating them. This Ting Wei Gongzhong was really a harsh figure. Just under broad daylight, he dared to let the people of Ting Wei Si carry out a punishment to the people of family Shao. Those who were beaten by whips had considerable light punishments. When meeting those stubborn ones, they directly carried out huge punishments. Within the air, there was a sense of fresh blood and scorched skin flavor. The tragic calls rose up and down. Gongzhong hugged his hands, coldly staring at this. Hearing that someone had reported that Princess Beiyu was here, he immediately waved his hand over and let people to bring the people suffering a punishment away so that they won't frighten Princess Beiyu. Uncle Gong. Huang Beiyu stared at the group of people, not seeing Xiao Yuanqing. Return 10 times as much, 16, there were many people here. Gongzhong let out a low cough and said, Princess, let's talk in private. Huang Beiyu followed Gongzhong to a place where there were a few people. When she saw his expression, wanting to speak but hesitating, she whispered, Uncle Gong, is this matter related to my father? Gongzhong raised his head and looked at the 12-year-old child in surprise. He secretly marveled at how keen and intelligent she is. Princess, I don't know what to make of this situation. Please give me a hint, Princess. Gongzhong lowly replied. This situation involved Princess Zhang's manners, reputation and Princess Beiyu's relationship with her father. He is an outsider, one who acts according to the law. He is upright and plain-spoken, but he didn't have the heart to do so sometimes. Seeing such the young Princess Beiyu, he felt touched in his heart often. If Princess Zhang was still alive, how could this child have endured such torture? Huang Beiyu was stunned. Right after, she faintly smiled. What needs to be done, Uncle Gongzhong, please make a decision. This is official matters. Beiyu doesn't dare to intervene. Gongzhong sighed. As expected, she was trained by Princess Zhang, such a brilliant and intelligent girl. Uncle Gong. Huang Beiyu pondered over it, then opened her mouth. I want to see him. I am not sure if it is convenient or not. Of course it is convenient. Wait here for me. I am going to bring him over. Gongzhong walked back to bring the person over. Dong Ling was watching her from afar. She wanted to walk over, but Huang Beiyu waved her hand, signaling her to not come over. Quickly, Xiao Yuanqing was brought over by two people within Ting Wei Si. Probably it was because he watched as his subordinates had been carried out execution and that scene was too bloody and frightening, his two legs couldn't stand up straight without people holding onto him. Therefore, he fell on the ground. Huang Beiyu looked at him, from up above and coldly called, Father. Xiao Yuanqing's whole body trembled and he immediately raised his head. He raised his hand over wanting to grab onto the hem of Huang Beiyu's skirt, but she had agilely dodged it. She held a face of dislike. How disgusting would it be to let him touch her? Xiao Yuanqing started to cry. Father had been framed. Beiyu, how could father try to harm you? Father is really framed. Since you are framed, father should go to Ting Wei Darren in order to speak clearly of what happened. What is the point of coming to find me then? I am not Ting Wei. I can't decide what your crime will be. Huang Beiyu coldly declared. Xiao Yuanqing was discouraged. He knew that this time, his suspicion could never be cleansed of. That Gongzhong is a really powerful figure. Since he had obtained the evidence, then he will definitely not let him out. In his heart, it was anxiously pounding. He slowly reflected on this and he threw his head on the ground, the tears falling down his face. Beiyu, father didn't want to harm you. I just wanted to get rid of housekeeper Zhou, but who knew that the people that I sent out were that unreliable and actually dash, Huang Beiyu coldly sneered, what a great excuse placing the blame on other people, saying that it was someone else's mistake and he had done nothing wrong at all. Coming to this day and age, the affection between father and daughter was that light. This Xiao Yuanqing, what does he want to redeem? She isn't the innocent and immature Huang Beiyu from the past anymore. The innocent and weak one was killed by them and they didn't even know this yet. Father, now that I call you father still, it's because we indeed are connected by blood. If there wasn't this layer, based on what you have done to me in the past and what happened today, no matter what I won't let you go. Xiao Yuanqing lifted his head, harshly gulping down saliva. He violently nodded his head, right. I am your biological father. Beiyu, do you really have the heart to watch as father is to be beheaded? Return 10 times as much, 17, owing a debt and returning the money back, paying with one's life after murdering someone else, these are all right and proper. Huang Beiyu exclaimed with an icy voice. Suddenly, the corner of her lips curled up into a cold smile. Father, we are all your daughters. How come you are that harsh to me? Xiao Yuanchang's corner of his lips shook. A couple of times, he tried to open his mouth but he wasn't able to say anything. They are all his daughters. But towards Xiao Yun and Xiao Rou, he is a gentle father. But towards Huang Beiyu, besides transferring the hatred towards Princess Zhang towards her, he had never completed the responsibility as a father. Huang Beiyu stared at him and coldly grinned. She slowly stated, Xiao Yuanqing, you are as expected a bastard. My mother, during that time, was blind. That's why she had married you. Xiao Yuanchang's body was frozen. The original body which was shaking in fear suddenly was stirred up. With a pale white face, he started screaming, your mother had married me but not one day was it out of truth. If it weren't that I was blinded in the past, I would definitely not marry her. Huang Beiyu's body trembled. She furrowed her eyebrows, inquiring, why? The reason why she married me is because Xiao Yuanqing suddenly calmed down, not as moved. She suddenly thought of something then stopped talking. Seeing that his face was that pale white and the expression was painful, Huang Beiyu felt a little sympathetic towards the man. Not needing him to say it out loud, she also knew that the reason why Princess Zhang married him is definitely not because she liked him. This Xiao Yuanqing was that cowardly, so despicable and shameless. How could someone like Princess Zhang like someone like him? In between this, there must be a lot of things that people weren't revealed to. Maybe it had to do with political factors and maybe something else. However, no matter what it is, could they blame Princess Zhang for this? It is Xiao Yuanqing who is greedy and wanted to seek instant benefits, so he chose to marry Princess Zhang, becoming the emperor's son-in-law. Had he had a moral backbone, he wouldn't live a life without dignity for half his life. Huang Beiyu kneeled down and looked at his eyes. One word, one sentence, Father, what you had done in the past, I cannot look into this. But I will ask you something. You need to answer me truthfully. What matter? Xiao Yuanqing replied, stuttering. He suddenly violently came into contact with Huang Beiyu's cold and clear eyes. The hair within his body had all stood up. In the past decades, how come he had not noticed that Huang Beiyu had such a pair of intimidating eyes? How did my mother pass away? Huang Beiyu's small and exquisite hand harshly held onto his chin, stopping him from avoiding her gaze due to fear. Xiao Yuanqing trembled, sick, due to sickness. A flash of cold light appeared in Huang Beiyu's eyes. You are lying. How come I would be lying? In those years, she had been sick and from the palace, they had ordered for a couple of tens of palace physicians to come over but they all could do nothing about it. Up until she passed away, there has always been an imperial physician over-caring for her. The cause of her death, a couple of tens of imperial physicians had all claimed it due to sickness. Everyone knew this. Suddenly, within Xiao Yuancheng's brain, something flashed over. He suddenly violently lifted his head. He widened his eyes, looking at Huang Beiyu. With a serious voice, "Could it be that you're suspicious of me?" Huang Beiyu was stunned. Could it be that this matter, Xiao Yuanqing didn't know a thing at all? She understood how to observe one's emotions and expressions and psychology. She knew what it is like when someone lied. Xiao Yuancheng was stupid, and if he tried to lie, it wouldn't be that brilliant. It could not possibly escape her eyes. Seeing that she was stunned momentarily, Xiao Yuancheng pulled his hand away from her and suddenly turned courageous. Return 10 times as much, 18, why would I go harm her? I like her that much. The voice changed from being stirred up to slowly becoming softer. Xiao Yuanqing landed on the ground, weakly. Huang Beiyu slowly stood up. The face a little distracted. Murdering Princess Zhang, this matter, Xiao Yuanqing knew nothing about it. More or less, this comforted her a little bit. If Xiao Yuanqing not only harmed his daughter but also killed his wife, then he really isn't even worth to be a bastard. Beiyu, could it be that you don't believe me? I didn't harm your mother. She, indeed, passed away due to sickness. The imperial physicians during that time can all serve as evidence. Xiao Yuanqing suddenly stood up and pulled at the hem of Huang Beiyu's shirt, scaredly. He was afraid she will bring this matter up to the emperor. He didn't try to harm Princess Zhang before. But as long as Huang Beiyu exclaimed this to the emperor, based on the emperor's affection to the princess, he will definitely not have a road to live anymore. Xiao Yuanqing was incomparably frightened. He pulled onto the hem of Huang Beiyu's shirt, not letting go. Xiao Yuanqing, don't you dare be presumptuous. Far away, came a man's yell. Then a silhouette suddenly appeared and pulled Xiao Yuanqing to the side. Xiao Yuanqing shouted out loud due to fright. The bodyguards within Ting Wei Si who were observing from afar immediately rushed over and paid respects to the person who arrived. Salutations to Xiao Yao Wang. The dark green clothes deviated and Xiao Yao Wang turned around, looking at Huang Beiyu. Within his gaze, there were hints of distress. You are you okay? Huang Beiyu shook her head. Looks like Xiao Yao Wang had misunderstood. Before Xiao Yuanqing was just pulling on her clothes to beg for help, not that he wanted to do something to her. However, she wasn't in the mood to explain for Xiao Yuanqing. Right now, she was all over the place in her heart. With regards to the cause of death for Princess Zhang, it had turned into an even bigger mystery. If this mystery wasn't solved, she wouldn't be able to obtain peace in her heart. Bring him down and give him to Ting Wei Darren for his sentence. Xiao Yaowang coldly ordered. Then he walked up, patting her shoulders. Don't be upset, you heir. Besides your family, you also have me. What happened within the manor of Princess Zhang, he had heard also. Before, while he came over, he had met the people of Ting Wei Si. This Xiao Yuanqing actually wanted to set the place on fire and harm Princess Beiyu. He had also heard of this. In his heart, besides feeling distressed, it was even more distress. The moment he thought about how she grew up all these years within the home of the wolves, how could he be in a good mood? Xiao Yuanqing had already planned on killing her. Then before, the tortures that she had to endure must be even more. Huang Beiyu lifted her head and looked at him. In her heart actually, she wasn't that upset. After all, Xiao Yuanqing wasn't really her father. It's probably because in her body, the same blood flowed within. Therefore, no matter what, she was unable to make her heart feel indifferent as though the ice. The family properties that belonged to her were stolen by her biological father. He also planned on taking her life. This type of situation, when thinking about it, she was a little upset and felt a little sorrowful. Princess Bayu, you don't need to be upset. People that are not worth it, you don't need to place them in your heart. The gentle and warm voice rang. Feng Lianyi walked over with a body of white. Huang Beiyu stared at him. Within the foggy black eyes, there was a faint light flashing by. She suddenly opened her mouth, inquiring, Prince Yi, in the past when your father emperor sent you over to Nanny country as a hostage, did you ever hate him? Feng Lianyi was stunned. The faint purple eyes were calm, holding no emotions. That feeling, I forgot that already. Forgot. That was easily said. Even till now, she still remembered when she went with Princess Zhang to welcome the 9th prince who would become hostage to Nanny country. The floating forest, 1, at that time, he was still young but he didn't cry. However, he watched as the ambassador who brought him over indifferently left without even looking at him. Within his eyes, he held hatred. How could she not hate? No matter how strong her heart was, she couldn't take the betrayal. Wang Ye, there is a lot of things going on within the manor today. I might be inconsiderate while treating you guys today. Next time, I will apologize to the Wang Ye. Huang Beiyu lowered her voice saying this, then took Dongling with her, leaving. Xiao Yao Wang watched her back, shaking his head and sighing. After all, she was still a young girl. No matter how strong she was, she will still be hurt. Did I say something wrong? Feng Lianyi inquired with a faint smile. Xiao Yao Wang was frozen. Suddenly, he asked, do you really have no feelings regarding this? No. Feng Lian answered simply and straightforwardly. The gentle smile almost led people to become immersed in it. Xiao Yao Wang peered at him and shook his head. Sometimes, he really can't read this person. I need to go to the palace to see the emperor. Go back early. Okay. Feng Lianyi smiled as Xiao Yao Wang left, then the smile on his face gradually disappeared. After he patted the folding fan in his hand twice on his palm, he turned around heading in the direction that Huang Beiyu had left in. Today, everyone within the manor of Princess Zhang felt in danger. They were all busy and everywhere around, people within Tingwei Sea were walking around. No one had noticed him. The backyard within the manor of Princess Zhang was where the family lived. Tingwei Sea had already checked through it. Right now, everyone had come out and it was inconvenient for him to go inside. Therefore, he could only stay outside to see. Prince Yi didn't leave yet. Is there something? Huang Beiyu walked over from behind, the eyes looked at him coldly. Feng Lianyi was slightly shocked. How did she appear behind him? I came to find you. He said the truth. No matter how many lies he formed, he wouldn't be able to get it past this girl. There was no expression on Huang Beiyu's face. She coldly inquired, why are you looking for me? Although the tone was cold, however, she didn't drive him away. Therefore, Feng Lianyi was a little comforted. Principal Tsang he already decided that the day after, all the teachers within the school who has experience can take students who won 4 ranks above into the floating forest to experience. Feng Lianyi faintly smiled at her. After all the things that happened within the manor of Princess Zhang, I am guessing Princess Beiyu isn't in the mood to go experience. Whether I go or not, what does that have to do with you? Huang Beiyu icily glanced at him. Feng Lianyi smiled. You want to find the materials in order for me to refine marrow cleansing pill, so how could this be none of my business? These materials, I will definitely give them to you. Going to the floating forest to experience, I will definitely go too. Feng Lianyi glanced at her admirably. After what happened, yet your heart isn't confused. Your mind is clear as well as your target. Princess Beiyu lets people to admire her awe. You're over-complimenting me. After you finish your words, you can leave. Today, within the manor of Princess Zhang, we are not receiving any guests. Quickly, he was given the notice to leave. Unavoidably, Feng Lianyi felt a little discouraged. Seeing her cold and heartless face, he couldn't help to sigh. I am worried that you might be upset, and as it seems like, it was unnecessary. Huang Beiyu's clear and icy gaze looked over. How come you are worried for me? Because, he dragged on. The handsome face, the smile gradually turned charming. Next time, I will tell you. Humph. If you're not going to say, then leave. Huang Beiyu felt depressed, leaving him and walking in large strides. The floating forest, too. Feng Lianyi laughed out loud, yelling from behind, Princess Beiyu, I am the substitute zither teacher. This time, I am responsible along with Professor Guo to bring the students of the Imperial College into the floating forest. When the time comes, you can't be that impolite to me. He is responsible for bringing the team. Huang Beiyu was stunned. Then she turned her head around to find out the white clear silhouette was already gone. Such a quick action. Returning back to Rongyu Xian, Huang Beiyu started to plan to go to the floating forest the day after. This experience, at the least, they would have to go for half a month. Everything that happened within the family, she would have to rely on Dongling to take care of it. Concubine Qin, who was originally arrogant and domineering, as well as concubine Xue, who had a deep scheme, were now imprisoned. Xiao Yuancheng was also caught by Ting Weiqi. Within the manor, there probably won't be huge waves rising. She had just started to show off her prestige, so she wasn't really scared that someone might do something to Dongling. However, after all, Dongling was still young. It's better to have someone look after this with her. In this manner, the only person who could be relied upon in some way was probably Concubine Fang. Concubine Fang knows her status as Shi Tian, and under pressure due to this status, she will be loyal and help Dongling. After she ordered some matters to Dongling, she and Dongling personally went to Concubine Fang's Chui Zhuyuan to deliver her message to Concubine Fang. After Concubine Fang heard this, she felt overwhelmed by the favor of a superior. Princess, giving me such a great manor to take care of, I'm afraid Concubine Fang, besides you, there is no one else I can trust within the manor. This matter, you must agree to it. Concubine Fang hesitated for a second and didn't open her mouth yet when Xiaoling smiled, pulling on Concubine Fang's hand. With an intimate look on, Concubine, since the third sister trusts you that much, you should just agree. Don't let the third sister be disappointed. Huang Beiyu looked coldly at her. She didn't teach Xiaoling a lesson yet due to Concubine Fang. But this ungratified girl who acted pragmatically, she won't let her go. Concubine Fang had also thought of this layer. She understood her daughter the best and knew that Xiaoling was the type of person who acted according to power and was born naturally arrogant and proud. If she helped Huang Beiyu to look after the manor of Princess Zhang, who knows how arrogant Xiaoling would be when she goes out. This manor of Princess Zhang can't have its reputation ruined. Don't say that Concubine Fang doesn't have any affections towards her daughter, her own daughter. How could she not think of her? Even though Xiaoling led her heart to chill, in the end, she was still her daughter which she gave birth to after 10 months. But the affection between mother and daughter, in the end, was only the affection. She didn't want Xiaoling to become someone who became dominant and rampant. She just hoped that in the future, she could marry Xiaoling off to a normal man. Hopefully, that man would be able to suppress Xiaoling's rampant personality. Therefore, Concubine Fang thought about it before replying, I see, how about this? I am not really familiar with the matters of the housekeeper. However, Dongling is older and understands more things. In the days that Princess isn't here, young Miss Dongling should look after the house and I will look by the side. Hearing her words, Huang Beiyu admired concubine Fong a little bit from the bottom of her heart. As expected, Princess Shang's eyesight was pretty good, seeing how nice she had been towards her. This concubine Fong was indeed a reliable person. Just a pity that she had given birth to Xiaoling. What a disgraceful daughter. Mother, such a big Princess Shang's manner, isn't it not appropriate to let Dongling, a young lady, to look after it all? Xiaoling hurriedly exclaimed. In her heart, she hated this mother who failed to live up to expectations. What a great future placed in her hands, the wealth, power, and honor, how come she didn't know how to treasure it? The Floating Forest, 3. No wonder all these years, she could only hide in this small Cui Zhu Yuan, receiving the pent-up frustrations. Concubine Fong, young Miss Dongling is smarter than mother and also Princess Beiyu's person. Having her look after the house, naturally, everyone will be convinced. Xiaoling was so angry she couldn't say anything. She humphed, the face revealing an obvious look of disdain which led Concubine Fong to feel hurt. Concubine Fong was not comforted by her look. She thought about giving her a little warning to avoid having her go out and use her powerful connections to intimidate people. Princess, these 2 days, you have caught Concubine Xuan Qin. This matter, within the entire manor, everyone is well convinced by you. In the future, there probably won't be anyone who dared to follow suit the 2 people. Otherwise, they will land themselves with the same consequences. Huang Beiyu understood Concubine Fong's meaning. She faintly smiled. I don't like people who are not clean under my sight. In the future, whenever I catch one, I will definitely not let them go easily. Our manor needs to restart maintaining order. Troubling the Concubine Fong. Princess is being too polite. I am just helping by the side. The actual person looking after the manor is young Miss Dongling. Her words are the ones that count. Dongling smiled, bending her body. In the future, please remind me of some things, Concubine Fong. Xiaoling peered at them, watching as the 3 of them echoing one another. In her heart, she was secretly anxious. Concubine Xuan and Qin aren't here anymore. Xiao Yun, Xiao Rou, and Xiao Zhongqi, them, can't be arrogant anymore. How come it's still not the day she can stand up proudly? Big sister. Huang Beiyu glanced at Xiaoling. The half a month that I won't be here, please look after Concubine Xuan and Qin within the prison some more. Xiaoling was stunned then hurriedly smiled, nodding her head. Third sister, please be comforted. I will definitely look after them. Humph. Those 2 concubines had looked down upon her in the past quite often. Now that they are in prison and Huang Beiyu is letting her look after them, she won't act polite to them. Concubine Fong stared at her daughter helplessly. She secretly shook her head, sighing. They both have the same father, and while Xiaoling is a complete stupid person and thought that she had gained a benefit in which she can go teach Concubine Xuan and Qin a lesson, she didn't know that she had fallen into Huang Beiyu's trap. Going to find trouble for Concubine Xuan and Qin and letting people hate her, she won't gain anything from it. However, there was nothing she could do. Those who had a smarter mind, how could they have fallen into Huang Beiyu's trap? After ordering these matters to them, Huang Beiyu returned back to Rong Yuxian. She watched as the day turned dark and another day passed. She thought about how the poison within Zhanya's body hasn't been treated yet and how the day after she will be going to the floating forest. Within a short day's time, how could she find the antidote? With a depressed mood, she started to flip through 100 refinement scroll without even eating dinner. She had no idea what to do and instead, she felt even more irritated. Huang Beiyu, you don't need to look for it. No matter how strong the medicine saint was, in the end it's just one person. Based on his life's worth of skills, he might not be able to beat the sky-swallowing red snake. That is a spiritual beast. Ah. Yen, who had been quiet for a while, finally slowly started to say something. Spiritual beast, this snake had bitten me before and led Zhang Yi to be poisoned. I definitely won't let him go. Huang Beiyu harshly banged the table. These few days, she had been irritated about what had happened in the family. So now, her attitude was a little out of control. Yen took delight in her trouble, just based on you right now, wanting to fight with the sky-swallowing red snake, you're still a little weak. However, if you understand the secret of the beast without boundaries, maybe that would be different. Humph. Old monster, from day to night, you keep on instigating me to find the honorable spirit and worship him as a master. You are very happy. The floating forest, I don't take pleasure in doing that. The reason being is that I reside in your body, so I can't bear to see you so weak. If you encounter a strong opponent in the future, just don't implicate me to die with you. Yan's unease is not unreasonable. Huang Beiyu would be facing an entirely different world once she enters the floating forest. Although they are just going to explore the outer part of the forest, which mostly only lower-level spirit beasts inhabit, it is not absolutely safe. They might run out of luck and encounter a mythological spirit beast that had roamed to the outer forest. Huang Beiyu coldly humphed, you useless old monster. Are you sure you don't know anything else related to the beast without boundaries? Hey, don't call me an old monster all day long. I am not that old. Yen suddenly unhappily complained. Huang Beiyu aggressively snarled in her heart, don't talk any nonsense. Do you know or not? Yen grievously closed his mouth and thought about it. He replied, I don't know about other things. But I do know that the beast without boundaries is related to him. There must be a spell placed on the beast without boundaries, and within that spell, there is a summoning talisman. The summoning talisman is much more powerful than the summoning technique. The summoning technique can only be used by making a contract with a spirit beast, bounding the summoner and the spirit beast together. The summoner and the spirit beast will both be able to utilize each other in this contract. In contrast, as long as you have the ability to refine a high-level talisman, you would be able to summon any spirit beast at will, even mythological spirit beasts. Tisk, tisk. When Huang Beiyu heard this, she couldn't help but become envious. The summoning talisman does the same function when she forces spirit beasts to surrender to her and follow her orders. Both methods lead to the same result, but for her to force a spirit beast to surrender, she would have to first meet the spirit beast for it to work. But it differs with the summoning talisman. As long as one has the ability, one can summon any spirit beast in the country. This made Huang Beiyu eager to try refining a summoning talisman. She can't help but wish she would be able to master how to refine summoning talisman immediately. Yen could see the longing on Huang Beiyu's face. He mischievously laughed and continued to entice her. Within the spell, there isn't only a summoning talisman. There are also spells refined by using different attributes of vitality. The higher the refiner's vitality, the higher the rank the spell is. Huang Beiyu narrowed her eyes and asked, Vitality. You live inside my body, where would I be able to find any vitality? There is definitely a specific method to unlock the spell. You will naturally know the method if you go and worship the honorable spirit as your master. Yen mischievously laughed as he said that. Okay. Let's go look for the honorable spirit right now. Huang Beiyu took out her cloak and draped it over herself. It's the perfect time to sneak out now that it's deep into the night. You are really going? Yan's voice sounded a little excited. Huang Beiyu summoned the Ice-One spirit bird and began flying. However, the direction she is heading towards is not Lingyang College. Instead, she is heading towards Crown Prince Zhang Ye's other courtyard that is located in the outskirts of the city. Yen asked, aren't you going to find the honorable spirit? Huang Beiyu completely ignored Yen's question. She circled around the sky above Zhang Ye's courtyard, but she didn't land. Inside the courtyard, there was only one room with lights on. The window of that room is open so she could see Zhang Yi sitting in the study room reading a book. He was wearing a black cloak which made his complexion look even worse. Zhang Yi coughed a few times. This was probably because of the open window which allowed the wind to blow in. Eunuch Yongin immediately came over and closed the window. After looking at the window for a while, she said to the Isolon spirit bird, let's go. Let's head to the 7th tower. Hee hee. So you actually came here to make up your mind. Crown Prince Zhang Yi merely saved you once, yet you're making so much effort to help him. This really makes people not understand, Yen said with an undertone in his words. Of course you can't understand, it's not like you're human. Huang Beiyu insightfully threw those words. Yen choked on those words and almost want to kill himself. Humph. Does he want to ridicule her? This old monster still need to work on it. The Floating Forest, 5. At night, the forest surrounding the 7th tower was very quiet. There was no one around, just like the last time she had come. The scenery was gloomy and eerie. The atmosphere was layered with a thick scent of danger. This time, Huang Beiyu knew exactly where to go. She immediately entered the 7th tower. The original vitality that was around the window from last time was gone. It seems like the honorable spirit already guessed that she would come. This time, she doesn't plan on taking the stairs all the way down. She made the Isolon spirit bird shrink into a smaller size and made it fly her down the dark stairway. Once again, she appeared before the large stone doors. Huang Beiyu pulled on the secret mechanism on the door with some force. When she pulled the door open, flames suddenly burst forward. The sudden brightness of the flames made her unable to even open her eyes. The painful lesson she had experienced last time was still fresh in her mind. This damnable place is like hell. If she could, she would never return to this place again. Ice, let's go in, Huang Beiyu heavily said as she looked at the burning sea of fire. She turned around and jumped on the Isolon spirit bird's back and flew into the sea of fire. They didn't fly far when a dark shadow slowly approached them. The dark shadow turned out to be a species of bird. The size of the bird isn't as big as the Isolon spirit bird. However, the bird was pitch black, making it appear frightening. Huang Beiyu narrowed her eyes. She already started emitting her fighting aura, preparing to fight the bird. The Isolon spirit bird suddenly said, Master, don't worry. The black-winged eagle is in charge of communication and transmitting orders in the spirit beast world. Although their speed is very fast, they never take the initiative to attack. But if someone wants to steal information from them, their ability will erupt. When it fights, it's frightening. This is the first time she had heard about the black-winged eagle. She had never heard of such a role in the spirit beast world. Huang Beiyu slowly put away her fighting aura. She stood up from the back of the Isolon spirit bird. She held her hand as she watched the black-winged eagle fly over to them. A small ball of fire was sealed inside the crystal ball. The black-winged eagle flew over to Huang Beiyu. Spirit beasts and humans aren't able to communicate. Thus, the black-winged eagle could only hope to communicate with Huang Beiyu through the Isolon spirit bird. Master, he said that the honorable spirit isn't here. The honorable spirit will wait for you to return from the floating forest first before holding the ceremony to worship him as your master. There are 2 items inside the crystal ball. The first item is the punishment flame which can be used to save Crown Prince Zhang Yi. The second item is a simple spell that might be able to help you. Huang Beiyu asked, isn't it said that the honorable spirit would not leave the 7th tower? Then where did he go? However, the black-winged eagle had already turned around and flew away. As expected, the black-winged eagle is only in charge of communications. It doesn't care about anything else. However, what's important is that she now has the punishment flame. Now, she can save Zhang Yi. It doesn't matter whether the honorable spirit is here or not. After all, she doesn't really care about worshipping him as her master. Ice, let's go. The snow-white Iceland spirit bird flapped its large wings and flies over the sea of fire and past the stone doors. It flew up the dark flights of stairs and out the window. Huang Beiyu sat on the grass outside the 7th tower thinking for a while. The punishment flame will burn for half an hour to completely cleanse the poison. The process would be extremely painful. She believes that Zhang Yi wouldn't want her to look at him while he goes through the process. She took the simple spell out from the crystal ball. Huang Beiyu gave the punishment flame that is sealed within the crystal ball to the Iceland spirit bird to give to Zhang Yi. After that, she went to the Buji heir family's mansion by herself. She would have to go to the floating forest the day after tomorrow. This trip would be a long trip. So before she leaves, she wants to teach Luo something so that he would practice it when she's gone. In the middle of the night, a heart-wrenching scream could be heard from the outskirts of Linhui City. The floating forest, 6, Huang Beiyu suddenly halted her footsteps. The face turned cold and a burst of a powerful pressure suddenly harshly pressed forward. That pressure was too strong, which for a second, led her heart to feel as though it was pressed down tightly by something. She had difficulty breathing. When she escaped from the powerful pressure, she already felt that pressure leaving. Huang Beiyu furrowed her eyebrows. Instantly, she chased after in the direction of the pressure. There was actually this level type of master within Linhui City. How is it possible? This type of pressure probably already surpassed the strength of a 9-star summoner. They probably are on the 4th rank. On the Karti mainland, there basically wasn't that many 4th-rank masters. At least, within Nani country, it didn't even exist. She was a natural master who concealed her whereabouts and aura. She quietly and without any noise, approached the pressure. Humph, a fool who won't admit their mistake. It's better to kill you off. The cold and ruthless voice of a woman rose from afar. Right after, a burst of lighting suddenly exploded which lightened up half the sky. The huge raging 7-tailed dragon's body swelled by many times. In the sky, it shouted out loud and let out thunder rolls. Right then, the weather rolled about and then followed by the atmosphere. Stop looking down at people. What are you? You dared to act so arrogant on the land of Nani country. The furious yell within the air appeared to be incomparably coarse. The man on the raging 7-tailed dragon raised a heavy sword, and on the body of the sword, numerous thunder rays tangled around. He held a fierce face, already reaching the state in which he was about to completely explode. The hair on the head all stood up. That person was Sima Guiyan, Nani country's one of the very best 9-star summoner. His strength was definitely not to be questioned. Previously, in Nani country, he was given the name as Undefeatable Legend. It could even be said that he was a paragon. But the completely violent Sima Guiyan and the raging 7-tailed dragon under the powerful pressure seemed insignificant. Go, raging 7-tailed dragon. Let this fool taste our strength. Sima Guiyan hollered, driving the raging 7-tailed dragon suddenly down. Huang Beiyu couldn't help to furrow her eyebrows. This Sima Guiyan has a wooden brain. Meeting such a powerful opponent, he should be thinking of his next steps in order to save himself. Instead, he wanted to drive himself over. This wasn't what Huang Beiyu considered to be a powerful enemy, but this pressure, not needing to think about it, she knew how much it differed from her based on strength. It was completely like striking a stone with an egg. There wasn't the need to die. Since you are looking to die, I will grant it. That clear and icy voice seemed to be haughty and considered themselves to be arrogant. Hong Lian, since there isn't any news, then let's go. There is no need to stir up trouble in Nanny country. Another voice, even icier, rang. It sounded languid and undisciplined. It was a young man's voice. Hearing these led people to feel a sense of chilliness rising from the chest. After I get rid of this small character, then we can go. How busy is this? It's just a matter of raising the hand. After the arrogant woman completed her sentence, she really raised her hand, and the movement was so rapid it was a little unbelievable. Only to see a clear icy light flash by towards the raging seven-tailed dragon abruptly, then it was divided into two parts from the sword's light. The floating forest, 7,000. The miserable roar sounded and led the air to shake like a leaf. Sima Guiyan held a shocked face, and on his face, quite a bit of blood splashed on him. When the sword's light chopped the raging seven-tailed dragon in half and brought back, the aftermath of the sword's light streaked across his chest. One move. Just one move. Under the violent state, under complete preparation, Sima Guiyan and the raging seven-tailed dragon cooperated with one another but was killed immediately under one move. That strength was too abnormal. Unable to differentiate the good from the bad. That person left this sentence down arrogantly, the left with the other person. Huang Bei stood in the shadow of the corner of the wall. She furrowed her eyebrows watching this. From a distance from here, plus that one man and one man also had their backs against her, she wasn't able to see what type of people that had made the moves going against the light to see. It's just that walking out at this moment and looking clearly at them, only to see that behind that woman followed an enormous and deep red snake. Sky-swallowing red snake. She basically came to the judgment that it was a sky-swallowing red snake from the first look. That time after she fainted from the bite of a young sky-swallowing red snake, she had dreamed of an adult-sized sky-swallowing red snake often. That type of huge size was the same as this. The sky-swallowing red snake was a super spiritual beast. After it turned into an adult, it will come into the rank of a godly beast. The strength was frightening and it was unbelievable. If they weren't the same level summoners, they had no way of concluding an agreement with one another. Before, seeing this, that woman who killed the person indeed held a lot of strength. Just one move and she was able to kill Sima Guiyan and the raging seven-tailed dragon altogether. This type of strength, even she couldn't consider herself to be better. Humph. Just who is she? Huang Bei slowly walked out and stared at the raging seven-tailed dragon who was on the floor, almost about to die. It tightly held on to its last breath. This type of matter, she can't even save them. Ah. Sima Guiyan could still let out a weak noise. However, the summoner and spiritual beast's lives are linked together. If the raging seven-tailed dragon can't live, then naturally Sima Guiyan was about to be over too. Huang Bei walked over and helped Sima Guiyan from the ground. With a deep voice, she inquired, "Who are they?" Sima Guiyan looked at her only to see a 12 or 13-year-old girl. His eyes were filled with sorrow and desperation. What can this little girl do to help her? Huang Bei saw through his thoughts. This fool wanted to find someone reliable to spread the news out. A little girl naturally had no use to him. I am Shi Tian. The hoarse voice slowly opened its mouth. Sima Guiyan widened his eyes, obviously not believing this a little. This was only a 12 or 13-year-old girl. How could she be Shi Tian, a 9-star summoner, who had defeated him? Now that the ice spirit bird wasn't here, Huang Bei could only take out the cloak, drape it over her shoulders, and pull the brim of the hat down. After she communicated with Wan Shou Wujiang, the hair slowly turned fiery red. The hair slowly fell out of the cloak. Shi Tian. Sima Gia trembled as he exclaimed the words. In his heart, he still held disbelief over it. But the truth in front of him forced him to believe this no matter what. Who knew who really knew As it turned out, the 9-star summoner who owned the ice spirit bird was actually a 12-year-old girl. Wait, how come this little girl looks quite familiar? You are dash. The shaking hand pulled the brim of the hat on the cloak down a little bit. Sima Guiyan shockingly declared, you are Princess Beiyu. The Floating Forest, 8, that's right, I'm Huang Beiyu. Huang Beiyu, fortunately, pulled down the brim of the hat and the fiery red hair. The exquisite appearance was cold like ice, but she held some type of noble aura. Sima Guiyan grabbed onto her skinny arm. Princess Zhang's daughter is indeed not an ordinary person. He seemed to have grabbed onto hope and excitedly trembled. The more he trembled, the more blood flooded out from the heart. Who are they? Tell me. Huang Beiyu hurriedly exclaimed. When she looked at his state, she knew that he obviously wasn't going to make it. Goo goo, from Sima Guiyan's throat, he difficultly let out some noises. I don't know either. You don't know why they targeted you? Sima Guiyan difficultly explained. They came here to look for something. Look for something? What are the masters at that level looking for? Look for what? Huang Beiyu stared as his eyes gradually turned to slacken, so she hurriedly raised her hand over and pressed on his wound. Quickly say. What are they looking for? Sima Guiyan opened his mouth and his face revealed an incomparably fierce look. After he tried to make some noises within his throat, he finally announced the 4 indistinct words. Beast without boundaries. What? Huang Beiyu didn't seem to have heard clearly, inquiring once again. But in reality, she had heard clearly each of the 4 words. But she dared not to believe this. Sir Guiyan. Sir Guiyan. Huang Beiyu shook Sima Guiyan's body, but without hope, he ran out of his last breath. From a far distance, there was the sound of people coming over. Although the movements of the battle were quite big, it was settled within a moment. Therefore, the people rushing over would naturally be slower. Huang Beiyu didn't want to cause problems, but she also didn't want to give the beast without boundaries information to anyone. That black jade, only she knew of its existence. Within Nani country, no one knew what the beast without boundaries was. No matter what the 2 people's motives were, beast without boundaries was hers. No one could think of stealing it from her. After she placed down Sima Guiyan's corpse, Huang Beiyu quickly left from the other side. The mansion of the family of Bujier. Huang Beiyu directly infiltrated into the place where Luo was practicing martial arts like last time. She stared at the young man who was waving the sword around under the moonlight, and within her heart, she couldn't help to feel comforted by a bit. The silhouette appeared behind him without noise, and the fingers softly tapped against the sharp edge of the sword. Your practice is not bad. Luo violently turned around, with a happy tone. Master, you're here. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. Due to what happened before, she wasn't in a pleasant mood. Then she thought about how she was going for an experience in the floating forest the day after, so there wasn't that much time to teach Luo. Therefore, she didn't want to talk nonsense. She directly took out the flame beheading that Xiao Qiyuan gave to her last time. This sword skill, you first slowly try to understand this. Recently, I have some things going on. This month, I probably can't come. You definitely can't be lazy. Luo listened to this and his face fell down. Master, where are you going? There are some important matters that I must go settle with. Luo's eyes turned around and lowered his voice, saying, Then Master you must come back early No problem. Huang Beiyu thought about it then declared, tonight, the matter that you and Princess Inyit settled down in the manner of Princess Zhang, it is pretty nice. After he heard the compliment, Luo immediately turned embarrassed. He scratched his head, bashfully exclaiming, it's the master who had given me a pointer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of it. The Floating Forest, 9, it's because you're very smart. Even without your master here, you're able to do it so well, Huang Beiyu honestly complimented. This is her beautiful last move against concubine Qin and concubine Shui. With Princess Ingye's identity and the evidence from the Bujier's bank, she managed to suppress the two big mountains, making it impossible for concubine Qin and concubine Shui to reverse their situation. Luo laughed and laughed, but slowly, he couldn't laugh anymore. He said, Master, Princess Beiyu is so pitiful. None of the family members from the Shao family are good people. She must have suffered a lot of grievances under those people. Master, how does it feel to have the closest person to you betray you? It must be a very sour feeling. She slowly raised her eyes underneath the black cloak and looked at the simple and harmless young boy. Huang Beiyu felt an incomprehensive feeling rise in her heart. He is actually feeling sad for Huang Beiyu. Unexpectedly, Luo, who grew up with love and care, would actually be able to empathize with Huang Beiyu. Luo, it's no use pitying her. If she was strong since the beginning, then she wouldn't have been bullied by others. You are the same. As long as you become strong and powerful, no one will have the ability to hurt you. Otherwise, no matter how much you sympathize or pity her, it won't change a thing. Luo listened to her teachings and firmly nodded his head. He replied, Master, I understand. I will definitely become strong, so can rest assured. Huang Beiyu slightly lowered her head and smiled. She doesn't know why, but she got too excited and said too much to Luo. The events that had happened today had cast shadows in her heart, making her feel like no one is reliable. Even if that person is her father, didn't he still try to injure her? These kinds of negative thoughts are negatively affecting her. She must quickly dispel these negative thoughts. After leaving the Bujier family's mansion, the Aisawan spirit bird have also returned. Zhang Yi has received the punishment flame, so she doesn't have to worry about him anymore. But now, she is worried about the words Sima Guiyan has said before he had died. While sitting on the back of the Aisawan spirit bird, Huang Beiyu said to Yan, do you know the identity of those two people? Yan's voice could be heard only after a moment of silence. That woman's summoning spirit beast is the sky-swallowing red python. In this world, there is only one person who has a contract with the sky-swallowing red python. Who? Hong Lian from Guangyao Hall. Hong Lian. Huang Beiyu had never heard that name before. Hong Lian isn't a name, it's actually a code name. This is the code name bestowed by the sage of Guangyao Hall to the strongest person in Guangyao Hall. The summoning spirit beast of this generation of Hong Lian is the adult sky-swallowing red python. Her original strength is also unfathomable. Huang Beiyu licked the corner of her mouth. Hong Lian is the strongest person. Did she use her strongest move against Sima Guiyan? Why do they want the beast without boundaries? Yan laughed and said, in the Cardi continent, nothing can surpass the secrets hidden in the boundless worlds within the beast without boundaries. All those techniques such as summoning techniques, martial arts, illusions, or refining methods are nothing in comparison to the secrets hidden inside the beast without boundaries. So why wouldn't there be people fighting over it? Humph. This belongs to me. Huang Beiyu reached out to hold the black jade that is hanging around her neck. This is the biggest trump card she has in her hand. She won't allow anyone to take it away. After a moment of silence, Yen suddenly said, "Since the people from Guangyao Hall has already made their move, you should be careful when you go out in the future. They like to target the strongest people from each country." Although Shi Tian's identity is mysterious, with the Ice One spirit bird, she is too eye-catching. So in the future, she should try to be more low-key. Before she truly becomes strong, she doesn't want to encounter an unfair fight against someone who is drastically stronger than her. The Floating Forest, 10. Before she truly becomes strong, she doesn't want to encounter an unfair fight against someone who is drastically stronger than her. She doesn't want to end up like Sima Guiyan, who died in an obscure way. After the yearly competition, Lingyang College would always choose the winners of the competition to form a small group to learn through experience. The group would be led by one of the stronger teachers in Lingyang College. They would enter the floating forest to gain some experience. It can be said that the students that enter this group are all experts in their fields. In the forest, it would be the survival of the fittest. Hence, only experts who are rank 4 or above would be able to join the group. This year, Huang Beiyu defeated Lin Wanyi, who is at the Silver-White Warrior rank. She also defeated Lin Ziqing, who is about to enter the Gold Warrior rank. Thus, Huang Beiyu automatically received the gold rank without a test. With that rank, she is able to join the team and enter the floating forest. The group this year has around 100 people. But there are only 2 people who came from the Imperial College, Huang Beiyu and Princess Yingyi. This is the highest number of people that joined the group from the Imperial College ever since it was founded. Because of this, Teacher Guo was very happy. He also invited the northern country's prince, Feng Lianyi, who teaches the zither in the college, to lead the group with him. Huang Beiyu couldn't understand. Feng Lianyi is a teacher that teaches the zither. So how could they allow him to accompany them in such a dangerous journey? Seeing the puzzled expression on Huang Beiyu's face, Princess Yingyi smiled. She explained, "Prince Yi's vitality is of the wind attribute. The wind attribute is the gentlest of all the attributes. It has healing effects. However, it's rare for someone to have the wind attribute. Due to this, Principal Tsang he would always invite Prince Yi to join the team to enter the floating forest. It turns out that he has the wind attribute. She heard that although people with the wind attribute can heal people, when it comes to its attack powers, it's many times weaker than the other attributes. A 9-star wind attribute expert could only fight a 7-star expert of another attribute and the result would be a tie. But is Feng Lianyi this weak? His strength right now already gives her a headache. And she still doesn't know whether Feng Lianyi is a summoner or a warrior. He appears to look gentle and elegant, just like the son of nobility from the imperial capital. He doesn't look like he's strong at all. Since the beginning, Huang Beiyu's gaze has always been on Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi was talking to Teacher Guo in the front. He seemed to have noticed her gaze as he turned around and smiled at her. Huang Beiyu's gaze was calm and indifferent as if she wasn't staring at him at all. Very naturally, she turned her gaze away. Someone became gloomy again. Xiao Zhongqi and Xiao Yun were also selected to join the team this time. This was Xiao Yun's first time being selected to join the team to the floating forest, so she is very excited. However, the matter with concubine Qin cast a shadow in her heart. So no matter what, she is unable to cheer up. Several hundreds of the experts from Lingyang College gathered around the public square in Lingyang College. The scene was very lively. With Huang Beiyu intentionally spreading the matters that had happened in Princess Zhang's residence, the news had spread far and wide throughout Linhui City. Not only did the prince consort, Xiao Yuanqing, and his 2 concubines scheme to steal Princess Zhang's property, the prince consort also set Princess Beiyu's courtyard on fire to kill her. This degree of viciousness really makes the people shocked. Right now, the two concubines have been imprisoned in the prison in Princess Zhang's residence. If not for Princess Beiyu being magnanimous, they would have been beaten to death by the rod. Xiao Yuanqing had been admitted to the Justice Department's prison yesterday. The incident was so big that even the emperor got wind of it. The emperor became furious after hearing the news. He had sent out 2 imperial edicts. In the beginning, he wanted Xiao Yuanqing to be immediately beheaded. But after Xiao Qiyuan pleading the emperor for leniency, Xiao Yuanqing would be beheaded after autumn. With this incident, none of the nobilities dare to have any interaction with the Xiao family. The Floating Forest, 11. With this incident, which nobility in Linhuai City would dare to have any interactions with the Xiao family? The people who were originally on good terms with Xiao Yun are avoiding her in fear. Xiao Yun had never experienced this kind of cold treatment. She and Xiao Zhongqi are like 2 abandoned dogs as they pitifully stand on the side together. They look at the experts who pass by them, smiling and greeting Huang Beiyu. In Lingyang College, a gold rank expert is considered one of the top experts in the college. So when those people look at Huang Beiyu, their gaze now contain more respect. When Xiao Yun saw that, she clenched her teeth. While beside her, people were gossiping about her. That's her. That is Xiao Yun. She is the daughter of the greedy concubine from Princess Zhang's residence. Just look at her, she doesn't look like a good person either. TSK. Her concubine mother is locked in prison. Yet she still has the heart to attend the team to gain experience in the floating forest. She really is heartless. How can you blame her? Her concubine mother was really mighty before, she acted like she was the main wife. How about now? Now that her backing is gone, she can only rely on herself now. Haha, that's right. She is just the daughter of a concubine yet she still wants to fly higher. What a joke. They didn't avoid the discussions about her. They deliberately stood close to her, allowing her to hear their conversation to anger her. Xiao Yun clenched her teeth and turned around. She glared at the group of talkative young ladies and said, "Are you done talking? Oh my. Be careful or else she will kill you." Last time, she had killed her servant girl on the street. Her methods are ruthless. She actually dares to be so presumptuous in front of so many people. What do you know? She was never properly educated. Hence, she actually dares to kill people in the middle of the streets. Yet after killing her servant girl, she still has no sense of shame and acted brazenly in front of everyone. She even took off her clothes in order to seduce Xiao Yaowang. So what kind of things can she not do? Those people continuously chattered yet they didn't appear afraid at all. What are they afraid of? Right now, everyone is waiting for her to slip and fall. If she dares to make a move against them, no one would let her get away with it. When Xiao Yun's angry face paled, Huang Beiyu slowly walked over. She glanced at the group of young aristocratic ladies. When Huang Beiyu walked over, the young aristocratic ladies' attitude suddenly did a 180-degree turn. They immediately smiled at Huang Beiyu and began flattering her. Congratulations Princess Beiyu, for joining the team this year to gain experience. You are the youngest person in our team this year. You really are a genius. Yeah, you are now representing the Imperial College. Teacher Gua is so happy that he praises you every day. It's no wonder you're from the Imperial lineage. You're a young genius. How can ordinary people compare to you? When the young lady spoke, she glanced at the red-faced Xiao Yun and smiled. I'm also very happy to be able to join the team and gain experience together with everyone, Huang Beiyu said as she smiled. Her noble manner really makes people feel amazed by her. She became famous after the competition. Now she is one of the strong people, and people always respect the strong. After the group of young aristocratic ladies finished flattering her, Huang Beiyu glanced at Xiao Yun. She continued to smile and said, "Second sister, I didn't think you would join the team to gain experience right now." Xiao Yun loudly said, "I was selected based on my strength. So why wouldn't I go?" She really wishes that everyone could hear what she had just said. In the skills competition, she had defeated her opponent and gained the opportunity to join the team to gain experience. Huang Beiyu smiled, "Of course I know that second sister is very powerful. It's just right now, concubine Shui is still locked in prison." The Floating Forest, 12, Huang Beiyu smiled, her eyebrows curled. "Of course I know the second sister is the strongest. It's just that the concubine Shui is still imprisoned in the prison and her body isn't that good. After the second sister goes, probably you won't get back before half a month's time. Without your detailed serving for concubine Shui, the days within the prison isn't that easy to pass by." Xiao Yun's face grew red and slowly turned green and white. She thought back to the incense burner Huang Beiyu placed in the prison and felt unwell in her heart as though a cat was scratching her. Of course, she knew that no one took care of her mother in prison. Xiao Zhonglei, after all, was a man and wasn't mature enough. He wasn't that close to mother, and after mother had suffered from this, who knows how her mother would be like after half a month's torture from the rotten blood pill. However, when she was about to leave today, it was the mother who repeatedly urged her to go to the floating forest for experience in order to increase her strength and not care about anything. As long as she became a powerful person, they will still have hope. What happened with my mother? I naturally had already arranged this before coming out. Plus, there's my brother. Xiao Yun exclaimed in a loud voice. The second sister had already arranged this, then naturally it is the best. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled. When the second sister is done with her experience and goes back home, your strength will increase greatly. Concubine Shui will also have a light on her. Of course. Xiao Yun grinned with confidence. She held some confidence over her own strength. After she adventured in the floating forest for experience, her strength will definitely move up another flight of stairs. A couple of young misses by the side looked at each other, lowering their voices. For strength, she didn't even care about her own mother's safety. She obviously was a cruel and unscrupulous person. Xiao Yun was furious and wanted to turn around to yell at them when Principal Zhang He's clear voice rang. "Prepare to leave now." This voice, which shocked the people's hearts, immediately led the hundreds of masters on the plaza to raise their arms and cheer. Setting off now. The floating forest, their road for the experience. Only the courageous people could step into this dangerous place. The mercenaries and the adventurers' heaven. Floating forest. The warm-blooded cheers resonated above the Lingyang College. Numerous young men/women's hearts all trembled with excitement due to this arriving adventure. Going out for experience, it wasn't like how the nobles would sit within the horse carriage when they go out for fun. All the summoners called for their spiritual beasts. They all rode on their own and opened the road in front of them. The students within the Imperial College and the refining pharmacists were in the middle, riding the horses. In the end, were the masters of the martial arts. The majestic line headed out from Lin Hui City, and on the way there, numerous common people all rushed forth to see them. The floating forest was a vast and boundless deep forest. It ran through the entire Cardi mainland and deeply rooted within the center. Because magical beasts and godly beasts often appeared as well as all types of unknown dangers, this caused the problem of communicating with each individual country. No one dared to cross through the floating forest by themselves on a horse and a gun. Even if there was a group of masters, it was extremely dangerous. Therefore, many people would rather revolve around the main road and spend more than 10 times the time but would not cross through the floating forest. Within Nani country, the outside of the floating forest held the same amount of danger. The misty forest was revolved around by fogs for many years. Once they crossed through the misty forest, they would be able to reach the outside of the floating forest. Towards the young and inexperienced masters, the misty forest was already dangerous enough. This forest was vast too. Often, there were mercenaries and adventurers who ventured in to search for materials and valuable ingredients. Therefore, there was a couple of roads which were comparably safe. Plus, before the ice spirit bird had come here and released a powerful sense of pressure. The floating forest, 13. This led the misty forest to be frozen and a lot of the spiritual beasts to flee into the floating forest. Therefore, the road into the misty forest was much safer and easier. In the front is the Uluogu. After we pass the Uluogu, we will be truthfully within the floating forest. Princess Ingyi rode a horse and drove alongside with Huang Beiyu. She was afraid she didn't understand the path, so she patiently explained. Huang Beiyu was quite familiar with this section, but towards the floating forest, she had no understanding of it. Floating light, as the name suggested, because inside the forest, the plants were dense and it hid the sky. For many years, no light was seen that often. Therefore, within the forest, a super low-level spiritual bug named Floating Light appeared. Their body would emit off intense and bright lights which will give light to the dark forest. The rank of floating lights was very low. They don't have an attack attribute. However, if a group of floating lights appeared, there was some danger. These spiritual bugs like to suck blood. If someone was to be surrounded by a group of floating lights, it would be a little frightening. This was how the floating forest got its name. Inside, the higher-level spiritual beasts could be seen everywhere. Just outside of it, it was very dangerous. As the legend exclaimed, every place, there was either a godly or a wicked beast that occupied their territory. No one could cross a border, otherwise there will be a world-shaking battle. Within the misty forest, they met some spiritual beasts that weren't high in ranks. It was mostly the red and blue bats with high attack attributes that appeared in groups that they had seen. At this time, the professors would divide the students into small groups to attack the spiritual beasts. The professors would stand to one side, watching this. They would only go to save someone when it was life-threatening. Huang Beiyu and Princess Ingyi, as well as Xueqie, were one team. Within the three-people group, their strengths were quite strong. Because Xueqie had the 10th order spiritual red spider, he liked to show off in front of Princess Ingyi, therefore most of the times, it was him who was killing the spiritual beasts. Huang Beiyu symbolically took out a whip and got rid of the spiritual beasts which were acting recklessly. Comparing this, Xueqie and Princess Ingyi were considered to be outstanding. The places that they walked by, there were numerous corpses of bats. Huang Beiyu's strength seemed to be weaker. Saying the truth, the spiritual beasts that they met here have too low of a rank. There was no desire to challenge them. With her strength, she could definitely kill them in one shot. However, that way, she would be standing out. Plus, she needed to leave some chances for Xueqie, this type of tactless and impulsive master, to show off, right? Princess Beiyu. Looks like you don't have that many experiences in the fighting. However, you're lucky and are in the same group as I am. You and Princess don't need to worry. You just need to follow behind me. Xueqie arrogantly stood on the spider's back and started laughing. Huang Beiyu coldly stared at him. Giving him some chances had, however, led him to be arrogant. Look as I play you to death. Young Master Xueqie's strength and experiences are powerful. With you opening the road in front of us, it saved Princess and I quite a bit of time. Speaking of which, these bats are frightening and numerous. Huang Beiyu raised her head. She smiled brightly. That exquisite 5 sense organs, in the past, he hadn't noticed that it was that breathtaking. Xueche's heart thumped rapidly and suddenly felt regretful that he had broken the promise of marriage. At that time, he had no idea Huang Beiyu was actually not a useless person. She was so beautiful and the best option for a wife. The Floating Forest, 14, but in the past, he listened to his father's words and missed this girl in vain. Not only that, but he also offended the manor of Princess Zhang. This led to the manor of Angua Gong to suffer from it afterward. Who knew if this Princess Beiyu still held some sort of feelings towards him? He pondered over this in his heart and Xueche suddenly rose with spirit. You do not need to be afraid, princess. Let me go open the road for you guys. When he finished his words, he drove the 10th order red spider and rushed forwards to the front. The blue bats that dared to bump into them as they passed by all died or suffered heavy injuries by the red spider's powerful ray of lightning. Princess Yingyi slightly furrowed her eyebrows. Beiyu, how come you keep giving this fool the chance to show off? Huang Beiyu smiled. She blinked her eyes, a little childishly. Did Princess ever hear of the saying that the shot hits the bird that pokes its head out first? As she exclaimed this, she already mumbled the words to control a spiritual beast. Through the powerful spiritual mind, she was able to control the red spider. Because the red spider was defeated by her in the past, it conveyed a huge sense of fear to her. The moment it felt her spiritual power, the whole body shook, then quickly hid in Xueche's spiritual beast space ring. Xueche, who was in combat with a group of blue bats, originally, was full of spirits since the blue bats weren't able to withstand the red spider's rays of lightning. But suddenly, he lost the red spider's aid. Suddenly, Xueche was completely exposed under the blue bat's attacks. At first, after he was stunned, Xueche was still able to fight against the blue bats based on the 4-star summoner's strength, and he attempted to summon the red spider. However, after he tried many times, that red spider actually broke the connection with him. No matter what he tried, he was unable to communicate with him through the contract. Xueche was shocked within his heart and knew that he couldn't keep fighting any longer. He immediately wanted to back away, but those blue bats who had been defeated and beaten by him were not angered. Right now, they saw that he suddenly didn't have the help of the red spider, so they all flocked over. 2 fists are difficult to battle against 4 hands. Although the blue bats were small in size and didn't have a strong attack attribute, they were still the 10th order spiritual beasts. It might be easy to fight against 1 or 2, but it was too scary to fight a group. Xueche released a tragic yell and he hugged his head, scurrying here and there. Those vicious blue bats only paid attention to violently attacking him. The blood flowed out and they sucked on the blood with all their might. When the meat fell out, they ate the meat with all their might. What happened here suddenly led the other teams to be stunned. The other teams weren't that arrogant like Xueche. They hadn't relied on their strengths to draw too many blue bats over. For the majority, they already got rid of them. Now that they had seen Xueche's tragic look, after being stunned, most of them stood to the side to admire this happily. The professors were all shook by this momentarily before they thought of coming over to save him. They basically didn't need to worry about Xueche's strength, so they hadn't really paid attention to this side. Who knew such a huge matter would have occurred? The blue bats were small in size, but it wasn't a joke when they attacked as a group. Perhaps there might only be a pile of bones left momentarily. A couple of professors rushed over together. The summoners and masters of martial arts all made a move at the same time and the group of blue bats was eliminated. They had saved Xueche, who was covered in blood due to the bites. Prince Yi, please. A professor hurriedly requested for Feng Lianyi's presence. Feng Lianyi stared at Xueche, who was on the ground and unconscious. He raised his eyes and looked meaningfully at Huang Beiyu. Then, He raised his two hands and a trace of wind-attributed aura that could be seen by human eyes slowly dispersed in his hands. The wind-attributed transformed into a transparent protective screen, enveloping Xueqi. Godly young beast, 1. He just simply moved his hands and the wind-attributed aura used to heal people increasingly flowed into Xueqi's body. Such beautiful and confident moves, faintly performed as though running water, paired with the body of pure white clothes. Who knew how many women's faces turned red and their hearts moved by this? This was the first time Huang Beiyu had seen Feng Lianyi used his aura. Besides believing his moves to be beautiful, she was secretly touched with this type of aura able to heal injuries. When she practiced asceticism of the beast without boundaries amulet methods, she was able to transfer the aura within earth and heaven as she wished to. When the time came, she should be able to use the wind attribute as well. This type of aura that healed injuries was necessary regardless of the time. Feng Lianyi slowly placed away from his wind-attributed aura after he peered at Xueqi's injury which gradually healed and stopped bleeding. He slightly coughed, a little weak. Troubling Prince Yi. Elder Nan Gong, who was in charge of bringing the team this time, cupped his fist, thanking him. Although the 9th Prince of Beiyao country was only a hostage, his personality and power led everyone to be convinced in the heart. No worries. Bring him to rest. Feng Lianyi faintly exclaimed. He hadn't revealed an arrogant expression which led others to admire him more. Although his power was special, it seemed like he wasn't able to use large amounts at one time. What the elders meant was that unless they faced a situation with no alternatives, then they will try their best to not use Feng Lianyi's power. This was unexpected. Who knew that within the misty forest, there would have occurred such a huge injury when facing low attack-attributed spiritual beasts? Right now, Xueqi was unable to go to the floating forest with them. It was convenient to bring him out since they hadn't been in for a long time. A couple of elders told people to bring Xueqi out, then they brought the groups together and continued moving forward. When they finally reached the outside of the floating forest, they then camped there and went to rest. This type of rule to experience had been passed down by Lingyang College for many years. Therefore, all the work needed to do, such as lighting a fire, cooking, and setting up camps, were all distributed regularly amongst the people. Huang Beiyu and Princess Beiyu finished setting up the camps, then she wanted to go out herself. She first wanted to see what it's like around the floating forest. She was unsure if she was able to find a couple of ingredients needed to refine cleansing bone marrow pill outside the floating forest. In order to prevent the students from being curious and going out to the floating forest by themselves, around the camps, there were a couple of professors who took returns in patrolling. Huang Beiyu didn't want to stir up trouble, so she stood from afar, looking for a while. At this time, no one knew what happened within the floating forest, but suddenly a burst of earthquake-like footsteps along with many spiritual beasts' frightened howls rang. Everyone who was originally busy all stopped their actions. They all raised their heads, looking at the endless darkness. From time to time, there were some floating lights sparkling within the deep forest. What happened? It felt as though many spiritual beasts were rushing here. Plus, they were all at least above the 10th order. Elder Nan Gong hurriedly walked out from the tent and squinted his eyes, looking. Did the people who went make inquiries in the front come back yet? Elder, none of them is back. A young professor anxiously replied, Elder, the situation doesn't seem right. Let the students leave first. Elder Nan Gong also had the intentions of doing so. This group of students was Lingyang College's recent years of elites. They couldn't afford to lose them. Godly young beast, too, he wanted to command the people when suddenly a group of people on horses hurried out from the floating forest. Within the group of people, there was summoners and warriors. They seemed to be a powerful squad of an army. Damn! Boss, there are a lot of bastards here. A loud and rough voice rang from afar. This led the group of elites from Lingyang College to be unhappy. The army seemed to be calmer after they ran out of the floating forest. A huge ape walked over, shaking the earth while doing so. It confronted the people from Lingyang College outside of the floating forest. On the huge ape's shoulders, there was an arrogant man with a long beard sitting on top. A pair of bell-like eyes swept across the students. In the end, his eyes landed on Elder Nan Gong. You guys are people from Nanny country. The moment he opened his mouth, it was filled with a disdainful tone. They're just a group of small children. There are probably only a couple of masters, as it seemed like. They probably came to Nanny country's college to train. The group of students looked to be a source of easy profit. Elder Nan Gong walked out. Nanny country was a big country, so naturally, it couldn't lose its face. Therefore, he cupped his fist, stating, "We are the people of Nanny country's Lingyang College. Maybe I ask who your team is?" Humph. Lingyang College. I never heard of this before. That man with a long beard arrogantly replied, "We are Dongli country's first army, the Four Oceans Army. We crossed from the east to the floating forest." Indeed, the Four Oceans Army held some reputation on the mainland. On the Karti mainland, it could also be considered a top-ranked army. Their leader wasn't a summoner but rather a martial arts master that legend had entered the war god rank. The long-bearded man who drove the ape probably isn't the leader. What led Elder Nan Gong and the others to be shocked was not the Four Oceans Army's reputation but rather that the long-bearded man explained that they had crossed from the east over to the floating forest. Dangers surrounded the floating forest and different types of spiritual beasts appeared out of nowhere. Even if they crossed over from the east, they needed to be very powerful. There were only about 30-something people within the army the long-bearded man led. Although each one of them was tall, muscular, and all powerful people who had experienced many battles, could they really cross the floating forest? "Elder, these people don't seem to be friendly." A young professor came over, exclaiming this in a low voice. Elder Nan Gong held a gloomy face, lowly yelling, "Don't say nonsense. As long as they don't be aggressive to us, then it's fine." As he finished his words, Elder Nan Gong raised his head, smiling, "Since your group had crossed over from the floating forest, can you tell us what happens within the forest?" The sound of the spiritual beasts running closer continued and they detected danger. Humph. This is the rebellion of the spiritual beasts. You guys dare to barge into the floating forest and not knowing this. The people of Nanny country are so funny. Princess Ingyi furrowed his eyebrows. She placed her hand on the sword, incomparably angry within her heart. The moment these people opened their mouths, they talked about Nanny country in disdain. How could she do nothing being the princess? Princess. Huang Beiyu held onto her hand, softly shaking her head. She lowered her voice, "Don't rush. Later on, we will teach them a good lesson." Now Elder Nan Gong needed to lead the students and evacuate. The spiritual beast's rebellion seemed to be hard to deal with. It was not a good time to stay. Elder Nan Gong's face wasn't looking good. The Four Oceans Army was too arrogant. Spiritual beast's rebellion. The normal spiritual beast's rebellion would crazily attack one another within a certain area. How was it like this where they seemed to be rushing in one direction to escape? Godly young beast, 3, however they don't have the time to think about these things. Their priority should be to let the students escape first. Therefore, Elder Nan Gong didn't bother about the 4C mercenaries' attitude. He allowed the teachers to quickly withdraw their students from the area. The big bearded man felt that the group of students in front of him were all fat sheep. So the moment his eyes landed on them, he had already decided that he absolutely would not let them go. He waved his hand to beckon his people to follow them. The students from Lingyang College were walking on the left side of a small brook as they returned back to the Falling Moon Valley camp. On the other side of the brook, the 4C mercenary were led by the big bearded man as they followed the students. When they reached their camp, it was already dark. After they finished eating their dinner, the students gathered at the center of the camp. They quietly sat in a circle as they waited for the clamoring of the beast to calm down. On the other side of the brook, inside the 4C mercenaries' camp, the big bearded man was gnawing at a fat rabbit leg. His mouth was extremely oily. An underlying suddenly spoke out and asked, "Boss Yuan, that group of people are from Nanyi Country's #1 college, Lingyang College. I'm afraid that they won't be easy to provoke. Are you really going to rob them?" The man who had just spoken was quite fair-looking. He looked particularly weak and thin amongst the group of men. Boss Yuan bit down on a large piece of rabbit meat. As he chewed the meat, he said, "Luo Chun, could it be that you're afraid? We already had run amok through the floating forest. So how could we be afraid of just mere students?" He spits out oil and water as he spoke, spraying it everywhere. Luo Chun replied, "This time because the mythological beast on the east side of the floating forest became violent, the surrounding beasts had escaped. The only reason we safely escaped is that we had run and hidden away." "What nonsense!" Boss Yuan slapped the rabbit leg on the bonfire. This caused sparks of fire to fly in all directions. The surrounding people were frightened and immediately fled away. On the contrary, Luo Chun remained calm. He simply wrinkled his brows. "Luo Chun, how could you think this way? As we passed through the floating forest, we had also hunted down a few beasts. Hunting down spiritual beasts isn't based on luck." Boss Yuan muttered, "Luo Chun, you believe that we don't have any strength. Is that right? You think that we're all just weaklings? Humph. If your uncle hasn't asked me to take care of you, this daddy wouldn't have brought you here to gain some experience. You're just a pretty boy who is useless at everything." Luo Chun became angry. "Stop bringing my uncle up. If you lot really have any abilities, then stop trying to rob that group of students. Why don't you go to the floating forest and subdue that mythological beast?" Boss Yuan suddenly stood up. He pointed the rabbit feet at him and said, "What a good boy. When have I ever needed you to criticize how I do things? This daddy likes to rob. So what of it? There are pretty girls in that group of students. This daddy wants to snatch a few and have a good time. What can you do about it?" Luo Chun angrily shouted, "Humph. How despicable and shameless. You really ruined the reputation of the 4C mercenary corps." His fair and white skin flushed red in anger. "Ha ha ha ha." Boss Yuan raised his head and laughed. "Luo Chun, do you really think that the 4C mercenary is still the #1 mercenary group of Dongli country? Your uncle, that old man, is already dying. Let's split our things and disperse. My uncle will get better. Don't be proud of yourself." Luo Chun threw those resentful words at him. He didn't want to stay with a group of cowards. He was spitting with anger as he walked outside. When the guard outside saw him, he enthusiastically greeted him, "Master Luo Chun, there is roasted rabbit meat. Do you want a piece?" Luo Chun politely shook his head and walked to the side. The godly beast, Fort, the Luo family was considered one of the top families in the northern country. The Luo family's 4C's mercenary group was well known throughout the Karti continent for its strength and power. Due to this, the Luo family was very well respected. But a month ago, the leader of the 4C's mercenary group, his uncle, had met Hong Lian from Guangyao Hall. Hong Lian had challenged his uncle to a fight and his uncle had lost. Although his uncle managed to survive the fight, he was severely injured. When the people from the Four Seas mercenary group heard that their leader was injured, a part of the mercenary group became restless and tried to plot a rebellion. He was one of the few remaining direct descendants of the Luo family, so Uncle Luo Ju wanted to protect him. So his uncle made Boss Yuan take him and leave. But Boss Yuan wasn't a good person. Even though he does have some goodwill towards the Luo family, he was a shameless and vulgar person. Whenever he met a smaller mercenary group or team, he would always think of a way to rob them. When he robbed those people, he would always use the name of the Four Seas mercenary group to intimidate them. He really is shameless. I see, so you were driven out by a godly beast, a clear but ice-cold voice rang out behind them. The icy voice contained a hint of ridicule directed towards him. Who's there? Luo Chen immediately turned around to see who it was. But he was only able to catch a sight of a petite dark shadow flashing by him from the rear side of the tent. He couldn't clearly see who it was before the shadow had already disappeared. Young Master Luo Chen, did something happen? One of the mercenaries who was patrolling nearby had heard his voice and ran over to him. No, it's nothing. Luo Chen was also uncertain. Was the shadow from before a figment of his imagination? That shadow had moved so quickly, it was gone in a flash. Young Master Luo Chen must be tired. It's best if you return to the camp and rest. Tonight, Boss Yuan wants us to rob the students that we had encountered earlier. The mercenary sounded eager and excited to rob the students. Luo Chen frowned in disgust. He was only a guest in this small mercenary group, so it wasn't his place to speak too much or criticize their actions. The group of people from Lingyang College won't easy to deal with. For the academy to dare bring such a large group of students out, they must have many strong teachers protecting them. Boss Yuan won't be able to take advantage of them. They will hit a wall if they try to rob the student from Lingyang College. However, once they offended the people from Nanny country, there will be a lot of trouble for the Four Seas mercenary group. Huang Beiyue had easily bypassed the patrolling mercenary guards. It was like a children's play for her to bypass their ancient style of patrolling around the area. After she leisurely walked around the small river for some time, Huang Beiyue returned to the camp. Each tent had about 10 people resting inside it. However, Princess Ingye's treatment was different. She is a princess with an honorable status, so she naturally can't be crowded into a tent with 9 other people to prevent any accidents. Because Princess Ingye had a good relationship with Princess Beiyue, she had asked Huang Beiyue to live with her. Huang Beiyue opened the door of the tent and walked in. Inside the tent, she saw Feng Liani dressed in snow-white clothes, chatting with the Princess Ingye as he slowly drank his tea. Beiyue, you're back. Princess Ingye looked at her and smiled. Didn't you say you were going out for a walk? Why did you take so long? Feng Liani's pair of purple eyes was also staring at her. Huang Beiyue calmly replied, I walked along the river for a while. But I unconsciously walked too far. So, it took me a while to return. Feng Liani asked with a smile, there are mercenaries from the Four Seas mercenary group patrolling on the opposite side of the river. Isn't Princess Beiyue afraid they might attack you since you're alone? On the surface, it seemed that he had said those words out of concern. However, he was secretly actually taunting her because he knew that she had lied to Princess Ingye. Walked along the river. If she could behave herself like this, the world might be much more peaceful. Since I have come back safely, it means that Prince Yi's worry is unnecessary. Huang Beiyue looked at the smiling purple eyes of Feng Liani and said expressionlessly. Sure. Princess Beiyue is so clever that can always turn danger into safety. There's no need to worry. Huang Beiyue looked to him coldly. If this guy continued to speak such ironically, she would kill him. Since it's midnight, I'm afraid that it will bring bad impact if Prince Yi stays in the tent of Princess Ingye. So, please go back, said Huang Beiyue coldly. Beiyue, said Princess Ingye. Prince Yi and Master Yuan are sent by Elder Nan Gong to protect us. The elder said that the mercenaries across the river don't look like good people. In order to prevent problems, powerful teachers are sent to every tent and protect the students. This was the order of Elder Nan Gong, which was announced after Beiyue had went out. Huang Beiyue looked at the young man who was next to Feng Lianyi. She had a better impression of this person named Yuan Di than Feng Lianyi. The first time she saw him was in the outside of Hostage's palace. He was righteous, faithful and honest. Later in the challenge at Lingyang College, the groom who was bribed by Lin Wanyi was also caught by him. Huang Beiyue was a person who would remember even a little bit of kindness in heart, and she was especially respectful to those integrate people. I see. Then, sorry to trouble Master Yuan. Huang Beiyue turned directly, cupped her fist and bent over to Yuan Di, completely ignoring Feng Lianyi. I'm flattered Her Royal Highness. This is what I ought to do. Yuan Di also cupped his fist and bent over, although not knowing why Princess Beiyue only thanked him yet ignored his master. But since Princess Beiyue had said these words, he couldn't ignore. Feng Lianyi looked at Huang Beiyue with a slight yet bigger smile. It seemed that he was more interested. Princess Ingye looked back and forth between Huang Beiyue and Feng Lianyi helplessly. Usually, Beiyue was a polite person, but she seemed to be some kind of hostile to Prince Yi. Fortunately, Prince Yi didn't care. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. It seems that no one can sleep tonight in order to prevent the mercenaries from harassing. Princess Ingye frowned and said. Yuan Di quickly replied, I will be on guard outside for the whole night, so that you can take a good rest Her Royal Highness. Princess Ingye looked up and smiled sweetly at him, for whole night? How hard it is. Let me keep guard with Master Yuan by turns. Huang Beiyue looked up and said, already with a step out. I will be on guard till midnight. You all can take a rest. As Feng Lianyi was in the tent, she didn't want to stay here. Beiyue. Princess Ingye stood up and wanted to go after her. How could a girl keep guard at midnight? Princess Ingye, I suggest that we divide into two groups and be on guard before and after midnight by turns, Feng Lianyi said with a smile. I will be with Princess Beiyue before midnight. Please take a good rest trustingly. Princess Ingye blushed. He said that he would guard outside and let her rest assured. With him standing outside, she would surely feel relieved. But Brother Yi, Beiyue is actually very nice to people. She is not that cold or rude. Please don't mind. Feng Lianyi's lips aroused slightly and smiled, I know. Please go to rest, Princess. Di, you stay at the door, and don't sleep too deep. Yes. Yuan Di bowed and replied. Feng Lianyi went out. Outside the tent, the night wind blew, and the fire in the brazier was crackling. Huang Beiyue was sitting on the ground outside the mat curtain with arms crossed. Her petite body was quite imposing, as if she was very used to the guard things. He sat down on the other side of the curtain, turned his head, looked at her and smiled, Did I make you angry? Huang Beiyue didn't look at him, but coldly said, Prince Yi is over self-estimated. There are not many people who can make me angry. After listening to this, Feng Lianyi's smile deepened. His purple eyes were sparkling, and even the smile had spread into the eyes. Although she did not admit it, she was angry. Where did you go? Feng Lianyi asked with a smile. Do I need to report to you? Huang Beiyue coldly responded. Feng Lianyi touched his nose, smiled and said, although it is not necessary, I am very curious. Besides, as an ally I should ask. Ally? Huang Beiyue turned to look at him. She slowly narrowed her black eyes with some sly gleam flashing inside. Prince Yi, since we are allies, what's your occupation? It seems that you have not told me. It's because you never asked. Feng Lianyi looked up. The fire in the brazier shone into his eyes, lightening the purple eyes so bright. Huang Beiyue looked at it shockingly. After a moment, she came to mind, coughed and took her eyes off, and said dryly, I've asked now. Do you want to hear the truth, or lie? Crap! Huang Beiyue said angrily. If I want to hear the lie, why should I ask you? You're right, Feng Lianyi said with a smile, I am the summoner, wind attribute. What is your summoning spirit beast? Huang Beiyue asked again. As expected, he wasn't as simple as he seemed at all. A hidden summoner. Very powerful. Feng Lianyi looked up at the starry sky. There are too many people. I will show you next time. Huang Beiyue snorted. But suddenly a smile climbed onto her cheek. Few people know the secret that you are the summoner. Yes. You are the third to know. Huang Beiyue licked her lips, and said some treacherously, aren't you afraid that I will let out your secret? Feng Lianyi looked at her and was slightly surprised. Obviously, he did not expect that she would suddenly come up with a threat. Generally speaking, masters should be bright and upright. You won't. He said at a bit uncertain tone. He really didn't know much about this little girl. Well, it depends on your performance. Huang Beiyue already had a plan in mind. Just now, outside the tent of the Four Seas mercenary group, she heard the conversation between Boss Yuan and his men. She knew that spiritual beasts' weird movements today were not riots at all, but because of a mythological beast outside the floating forest. Although she didn't know how that mythological beast came to the periphery of the floating forest, this now-or-never opportunity could not be met every day. In the past, if you wanted to meet a mythological beast, you must not only have super strength, but also have enough luck. This time, wasn't it a good luck? The mythological beast came to the periphery and just scared away the spiritual beasts nearby. It must be much easier to enter the floating forest at this moment than usual. If lucky, she could still see the mythological beast. If more lucky, she might be able to tame the mythological beast. If she had a mythological beast, then that Hong Lian of Guangyao Hall would not necessarily be such a big threat to her. Hong Lian had a mythological beast. If she also had one, added with a little trick, it would not be difficult to kill Hong Lian. However, taming a mythological beast was just a good assumption. Huang Beiyue dared not to be careless. Although she was strong enough to tame Ice Spirit Bird using beast without boundaries, to tame a mythological beast was hard to say. Moreover, she didn't know the level of the mythological beast inside. This time, her main purpose of entering the floating forest was to find the 3 medicinal ingredients of refining cleansing bone marrow pill as soon as possible. Other things were just, by the way. She planned in mind, then looked at Feng Lianyi. He looked like a slightly panicked and feared. She smiled and said, Prince Yi must be powerful. Let's sneak into the floating forest. Feng Lianyi frowned, you are too bold. It is the riot period of spiritual beasts. It is the most ferocious moment of all spiritual beasts. If you go in now, aren't you looking for death? I don't believe that you also think it's a riot of spiritual beasts. Huang Beiyue said, to tell you the truth, it's the safest time for us to go in now, with no worry about being attacked by high-level spiritual beasts at all. How do you know that? Feng Lianyi squinted slightly. As an ally, I have told you my secret. You still don't want to tell me? Huang Beiyue raised her hand and pointed back, mysteriously said, the people over there told me that there is a mythological beast outside the floating forest, so the spiritual beasts are scared and are running away. Mythological beast? Even though Feng Lianyi was calm, he still could not help but slightly gasped. A mythological beast outside the floating forest. What did it mean? So, do you want to go and see with me? Do I have a choice? Feng Lianyi smiled wryly. She had said that if he didn't cooperate, she would let his secret out. So if he didn't go, probably everyone in Nanny country would know his secret tomorrow. He didn't doubt that she would not do as what she said. Huang Beiyue smiled. She was just asking. How could she allow Feng Lianyi decide whether to go or not? If she, an outcomer, entered the floating forest without a person more familiar with the environment, that would be too dangerous. Powerful as she was, Huang Beiyue was not foolhardy. Everything she did must be through careful consideration, otherwise it would be too late to regret. Now that having already planned to go, of course they couldn't wait anymore. This kind of thing, over time, would be known by someone else somehow. By that time, people would flock in and it would not be fun. Huang Beiyue turned and added a layer of vitality restriction on the outside of the tent. Feng Lianyi saw it and raised his eyebrows slightly. She knew how to add vitality restriction. Was she a summoner as well? Let's go. Huang Beiyue said, while having already stepped in front of him, disappearing behind the tent like a cat. Feng Lianyi followed up. They stopped at the junction of misty forest and floating forest. It had been several hours, but they could still hear the sound of the spiritual beasts fleeing and neighing in the forest. Many spiritual beasts had fled to misty forest. Be careful. Try not to use vitality after you go in the forest. Be careful. Try not to use vitality after you go in. Those floating lights are blind and they attack by sensing the fluctuation of vitality, Feng Lianyi whispered. No wonder even a supermaster dares not rush into the floating forest. If not use vitality, it will be troublesome when encountering a spiritual beast, Huang Beiyue said. However, she didn't need to be concerned with that for the time being. She was not able to condense vitality herself and there was no vitality fluctuation on her body. So she didn't have to worry about those floating lights for the moment. If you have no problem, just go in. Huang Beiyue asked faintly. Feng Lianyi smiled and walked ahead of her. On walking into the dark floating forest, the temperature dropped immediately. Because of the floating lights, even though it was dark, they could walk stably with no need to worry about the situation under feet. It was very quiet around. They too walked very carefully in tandem. While walking, there were sounds of spiritual beasts around coming from time to time. But at this moment, those spiritual beasts couldn't spare attention to attack humans who broke in but only thought about fleeing for their own lives. Having avoided the fleeing spiritual beast groups several times, they could now gradually feel the pressure from the mythological beast in the front. However, what surprised them was that the pressure was not as strong as it was supposed to be. Instead, it was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. But even if it was not strong, they could feel the pressing evil spirit from the exuberant pressure. No wonder the spiritual beasts were escaping. Even though the mythological beast couldn't emit strong pressure, its inherent evil spirit was strong enough to scare them away. Huang Beiyue couldn't wait to see what kind of mythological beast it was. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Wait. She was just going ahead when Feng Lianyi suddenly raised his hand and whispered. Huang Beiyue thought that there were some other strong spiritual beasts, so she pricked up her ears and listened carefully, but heard nothing. She looked up at Feng Lianyi, only saw him wave at her, then take a turn and go to another place. "Hey!" Huang Beiyue whispered, but he didn't hear. So she could only keep up. After 10 minutes walking, there were more and more floating lights ahead, making it brighter and brighter. The light was not glaring. It was very soft, but very cold, making their hairs on back stand straight out. But behind these floating lights, there was a small pool. The rippling water was more dreamlike under the light of these floating lights. In the pool, there were several single-petal 7-color lotus flowers. The 7-color single-petal lotus. Huang Beiyue walked up quickly, and found that it was really one of the medicinal ingredients she was looking for to refine the cleansing bone marrow pill, the water attribute 7-color single-petal lotus. Feng Lianyi whispered, "It's so lucky that the guardian spiritual beast here has been scared away by the mythological beast. Otherwise, it will take some effort to deal with the guardian spiritual beast." "How do you know that there are 7-color single-petal lotus here?" Huang Beiyue was overjoyed. Knowing that there was no danger in the pool, she strode down. The shallow water only reached her knees. She picked off all the 7-color single-petal lotus and placed them in the space ring. As the 7-color single-petal lotus were picked off, the floating lights above the pool seemed to feel something and slowly moved. A few floating lights floated down and slowly turned from side to side around Huang Beiyue. These floating lights were in long shape with dragon-like horns on their flat heads. These floating lights were in long shape with dragon-like horns on their flat heads. Behind the horn was a long soft, fin-like thing. Their thin bodies were crystal clear, naturally emitting the lights. If not knowing that they were ferocious spiritual beasts, you must feel that this creature was very beautiful. Huang Beiyue calmed down and looked at Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi made a squeaking action, then turned his wrist, and took a guqin from the space ring. He flipped the white clothes, sat down on the floor, and gently plucked the strings, soft and beautiful sound flowing out. The gentle sound was so smooth as if slowly drifting out like flowing clouds from his fingertips, high and low, far and near. Magically, those floating lights, on hearing the music, all stopped for a moment at the same time, and then left Huang Beiyue. They slowly moved to Feng Lianyi and began to spin around him as if there were melodies flowing. The floating lights were intoxicated in the music. Gradually, they began to dance in the dim space, bringing breezes. Feng Lianyi was playing the guqin with head down while the white clothes were slightly lifted by the breeze. The bright light flickered and faded in his purple eyes. His enchanting and delicate face was so unreal among the dancing floating lights. For a while, the music was sounding. The wind was blowing. The flowing lights were dancing. Huang Beiyue stared so intently with heart touched by the music that she even forgot the dangerous situation for a moment. Many years later, when thinking of this scene again, she still feels unreal, like a dream, but the best dream ever. Feng Lianyi looked up at her. He was also stunned when seeing her looking straight at himself. Unconsciously, he made a few mistakes while playing the guqin. On hearing the messy sound, the floating lights seemed to react to it all at once. After a moment of silence, the long fin-like thing on their bodies suddenly shook, making a noisy sound. Then they suddenly turned toward him and attacked. "Come on!" Feng Lianyi put away the guqin and immediately grabbed Huang Beiyue's hand to pull her out of the pool. Then he waved his sleeves, and countless condensed wind vitality flew out like sharp blades. The floating lights catching up were all hit by the wind blades to ground, glistening liquid flowing out from their bodies. After several floating lights had died, the follows immediately caught up, one after another, endlessly. Huang Beiyue snorted. She hated this kind of small but numerous things, which were more difficult to deal with than the fierce spiritual beast. Now that there were not many of them, why not solve them all at once? Just after the thoughts, Feng Lianyi held her waist and suddenly took her into his arms. Then he turned around and hid into a dark tree hole. The tree hole was not big, some kind narrow. She almost curled up in his arms so that they two could barely be accommodated. Find authorized novels in WebNovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Huang Beiyue gritted her teeth and said, "What are you doing? Don't make vitality fluctuate. Those floating lights are very sensitive. If you release a lot of vitality, they will continue to chase you by the smell. That will be very troublesome." Feng Lianyi whispered. Huang Beiyue frowned. But although she was not willing, she knew that floating lights were not easy to deal with. But the two were hiding in such a narrow place, it was a bit weird. She didn't know which spiritual beast had lived in this tree hole before, but it was wet and slippery, with cold water drops dripping from above and falling into the neckline of her clothes. A cold chill came into her. "Don't be afraid. They can't find us." Feng Lianyi softened his voice, and tightened the hand on her waist slightly. "Who is afraid?" Huang Beiyue's cold voice sounded, "Put your hand away." Feng Lianyi froze a moment. He slowly moved his hand away, coughed in the darkness and said, "Sorry, I didn't notice that the notes were wrong." If the notes hadn't been wrong, those floating lights would have been smoothly calmed and then taken to other places. Thinking of what happened just now, Huang Beiyue showed a rare uneasy blush on her face. Thanks to the darkness, Feng Lianyi could not see it. Hell, this was not what girlish or romantic heart of Huang Beiyue. She just felt that, anyway, she had been a killer for many years and had seen all kinds of people. There were so many people more enchanting, more attractive and more gentle than him. How beautiful the superstar Su Li was, and the famous Prince Shanye. Which one was worse than him? She did not even blink her eyes when she saw these people. But strangely, on looking at him just now, she couldn't move her eyes. It was really inexplicable. Thinking of these, Huang Beiyue coldly said, "If you are not capable, then don't do it." Feng Lianyi looked down at her in the darkness as he smiled bitterly, and said to himself in heart, he had never made any mistake before this time. It was just. They two hid in the tree hole silently and embarrassingly for a while. The noisy sound outside was calming down. They waited for another 2 minutes before Huang Beiyue first went out. Those floating lights were quietly floating above the dark forest in groups. Their bright lights were extremely weird in the silent dark forest. "Let's go," Huang Beiyue said to Feng Lianyi and walked forward. One of the 3 medicinal ingredients needed to refine the cleansing bone marrow pill had been found. The remaining 2 might need some time. Find authorized novels in WebNovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. There is a kind of earth attribute earth spirit plant growing in the soil. It is hard to find, but the place where the earth spirit plant grows, the soil will emit aroma, and all spiritual beasts like to move around. The low-level spiritual beasts do not have spirituality. They will leave a lot of saliva around the land where the earth spirit plant grows. If you see a place with a lot of saliva, you can pay attention to it. Feng Lianyi said to her as he walked. Huang Beiyue nodded and began to pay close attention to the surrounding soil. However, at this time, in the forest in front, there was an earthquake-like shaking, making them wobble. Several spiritual beasts made a heartbreaking scream, then it went silent. Huang Beiyue turned to look at Feng Lianyi. Even if she didn't say anything, both of them understood at the same time. That mythological beast must be in front. They too immediately rushed forward and ran toward the direction of shaking as quickly as possible. The more forward they moved, the more floating lights there were and the more radiant the lights were. A burning power was gradually approaching meanwhile. AWWWW, the violent roar sounded a little weak. After one low screaming, there were only heavy gasps. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.